to switch things around.
I think we're going to get started then. Are we good to go? I got to bang the gavel. The meeting is called to order, Southampton Town Planning Board, Thursday, August 10th, 2023. In the absence of the secretary, I will call the roll. Chair LaFaro is absent, Vice Chair Finnerty is present, Secretary Burke is absent, Board Member Catalanato.
Present.
Board Member Mutu is absent, Board Member Neely,
Present.
Board Member Fulham.
Present.
We have a quorum. Could you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Secretary's not here. I think we'll hold on minutes. And I think we're going to jump a little bit out of order. We're going to do the Lewis Road.
Yeah, so for the board there, I have two resolutions that I put in front of you. One is 2 pages, the other one's just 1 page. The first one is the 2-page. This is a resolution where you approve the integrated turf management plan and the groundwater management plan. And then the resolution at that point said, and recommendation that the town board's acceptance of same. If you look at the very last resolve, what it was supposed to say was, the planning board recommends the town board accept the monitoring agreement with Marty A. Petrovic. That's what the action was, so I put in the wrong terminology, so I just want to make sure the record's properly rectified.
So we're just reauthorizing
Yeah, it's the same, but just approve the resolution as amended.
as amended. Okay, very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? We have 4 yes and 3 absent. That was item 14, and then the second resolution.
Yep, is a 1-page. So the board remembers this subdivision included, in this particular case, the transfer of 24 development rights, you might recall, and then the town board's in the process of dealing with the dedication of the open space. As part of the approval, the planning board basically is effectuating the transfer of development rights. And if you look at the preliminary approval and the final approvals that were done, the planning board went through all the details of the transfer of the development rights, where they're coming from, how they were calculated. So this resolution is basically the planning board effectuating the transfer of development rights. And then if you look at the resolve, it's authorizing the planning director, development rights manager to effectuate the transfer of the development rights and recommends the town board accepts the deeds of dedication and signing of any necessary filing instruments.
Great.
Again, just for the board's edification, and you, Kate, because I know you sort of came in a little late on this, there's a lot of conditions in this approval, so I'm making sure every T and every dot
Yeah.
is dotted so that we don't miss anything. So this is the planning board is effectuating the transfer of development rights and recommends the town board's acceptance of the deeds of dedication and signing of any necessary filing legal instruments.
Great,
And
easy
you'll put
breezy.
this in the same format, so. it
Yes,
has
these
the
are just drafts.
resolution number and everything.
Yeah, they'll have proper resolution numbers.
Great, and do we have a motion for that?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 4 yes, 3 absent. Was there one more item before we go into the work
Yes,
session?
we'll look.
You asked what is Ridge Petroleum?
Ridge Petroleum.
I was expecting the applicant to come, so I would like to put that over
Until he shows up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what we'll
let's
do
go
then,
work sessions.
Claire, is we'll close the afternoon regular session and convene the afternoon work session and see if we can do a couple of those items, which is, we're 10:30 and 10:88.
Yeah, so I have David Gilmartin's here.
Hey,
I'm gonna have him
Rooney,
go up
how
there,
are
have
you?
the aerials up here.
Come on up.
So just to give the board just a quick description, this is really what it amounts to is, and David will explain, looking to get a carriage house on this property, and I think to address a clearing situation. So they're looking to transfer the development rights and clearing rights from this property onto this property.
Is it development rights and clearing rights, or just clearing rights? Both,
It'd be
okay.
both, because they need it for the carriage house, Dennis.
Yeah,
So that the carriage house provisions require a development right transfer. Technically, through the building department, but we're also doing the clearing with this one. So I wanted Dave to come in and sort of explain
couldn't
what.
they actually do subdivide the lot with that transfer? No?
See, the transfer to development, clearing rights seemed to be the easiest.
Yeah,
way to get
cleanest
rid
way to
of
do
the
it.
Separation.
So what's gonna happen to the remaining lot?
It would be sterilized,
it's gonna be held in private ownership but donated to the
And
town?
We could either
Oh.
donate it to the town.
So Dennis, what we've been doing on some of these is, in our conditions, putting the two options in there. They either have to put the, extinguish the development right and then encumber the property with a conservation easement.
Right.
Or they have to donate then, or they'll donate the land to the town.
We'll donate it to the town.
Yeah, that'd be cleaner. You know what happens, these things held in private ownership, they let go to tax sale, the county picks it up. 5 years later, we've got, I spent, $40,000, I want a building permit. So if you're going to,
We'll donate it, make that a condition of
great,
any
great,
type of approval,
okay.
that's fine.
So,
Well, I just.
So I just had a question.
Yeah, sure.
oh,
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead, Claire.
So,
Okay.
when you look at the overlay right there, like, it doesn't seem like it's an equal transfer. There's a lot of mature trees on the property that they wanna improve, and then this other lot really doesn't have that. So I'm a little concerned because it's in the APOD, and you really wanna select a lot that's gonna provide the same ecosystem benefit as, what you're
Well,
transferring to.
the lot we're transferring from innately has clearing rights and innately has a development right that we're looking to land on the lot that's already improved, so we'll do a carriage house on there and then meet the clearing. We can't take
Right.
more clearing off of what you view as a smaller lot, right? That number's been established with our
Which is the
surveyor.
building lot?
The one that's already improved.
This one, right?
Okay, so that lot contains a lot of mature trees and is in the APOD. The
Right.
lot that you're taking the clearing rights off of looks like it's already pretty cleared and wouldn't really offset the clearing on the mature tree lot,
Is
to
that
my
clear
mind.
already?
I mean, just,
It-
it's hard to tell.
it's-
Maybe you could zoom in on the Google.
It's semi-cleared because you have the high
Right.
tension wires and then you have an easement, but we've established what clearing we're entitled to on that lot,
Mhm.
square footage, and we're moving it on to.
So you actually have the square footages?
Yeah, it was done through the building department on what we
Okay.
were entitled to. and
So
what we-
they assigned you an allowable clearing on the sending parcel?
Right.
Which is gonna be added to the allowable clearing on the receiving parcel, so no
Correct.
more, you're not gonna get any
No,
additional clearing?
we don't get anything more than what we could pull off of the sending,
Oh.
I'll say the sending lot.
Plus, you'll eliminate septic system, well, you'll have a septic system for the carriage house
Is
anyway.
the issue that you're raising because of the maturity of the trees on that other parcel? The clearing rights unfortunately don't distinguish between.
Don't distinguish there,
Yeah.
yeah. So we have the tools that we have at our disposal.
Yeah, it's gonna be one,
Who's
it's gonna be,
supposed-
sounds like it's an equal exchange,
It-
is what I'm
Of
hearing.
has to
clearing,
be.
but not ecosystem
So
benefits.
Well, if the
Clearing-
town wants to improve it, they.
Sure,
yeah,
and so
after
I'm,
we give
I'm
it
not,
to
you know, you're working, as I understand it now, within the rules that are set forth by the town, which is, but it's also our job to kind of be the canary in the coal mine to say, wait a second, this doesn't, the current rules don't really address ecosystem benefits, and so that's something that we could address separately.
Well,
But
I
it
do
sounds
know,
like
if you
you're
talk to
within
the,
your right.
if you talk to the conservationists, the APOD really speaks more to the ground cover and avoiding fertilized vegetation. In other words, as opposed to focus on the type of, the height of the trees, they're more concerned that clearing doesn't occur and which warrants fertilized vegetation, pesticides, and so forth.
The other, again, just if you're looking at a macro level, the other side of it is the applicant's also going to be restricted to the size of the carriage house with this development right. Now, whereas the development right as it exists, you could build whatever the structure is. They're only
Right.
entitled to I actually don't think it'd be more than 3,000 and no more than X amount percentage of the principal, so.
Well, that kind of goes to one of my questions. Is that the power lines running down the
Yeah.
middle of
Yeah.
it? So is that a buildable lot?
Yes, we provided the variance from the zoning board that allowed it to be placed away from the,
Which isn't an ideal building lot to begin
Right,
with.
but if we said no to this, somebody could go in and build the house.
100%.
Oh, yeah. A lot of those houses there are right next to the power
Yeah.
lines.
You got this one right here.
Yeah. Yep.
And the carriage house isn't gonna be anywhere near 28,000 square feet.
no.
So-
No,
So Anthony, what's the mechanism for, it would be do we have to do a public hearing, or do we do it by resolution?
I think we do it by resolution. We've done these before, so I'll put it on for next time, Dave. I didn't do a
Okay.
resolution. I want to make sure
Right.
that we had the discussion, and then, and we'll put in there what the legal instruments need to be.
Right.
But so it would be done.
And
by
I think we've
resolution.
heard that the parcel, the sending parcel is going to be dedicated to the town.
Yeah. Yes.
With an easement, I don't know how that works. An
No, if it's
easement.
dedicated to the town just gets. the
But there's
one.
there's a utility easement, I'm hoping the town board can accept that.
Oh, okay, well, we'll look into
With the
that.
easement.
We'll look into that.
You know, okay.
In between, before we do anything, I'll make sure Dave and I look and make sure about that.
Yeah,
particular
that would
issue.
be more Christine question. Okay, Dave,
But
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
then we'll get this on
Appreciate
for next
that.
time.
Claire's got one, right?
And we have another work session, the Parish Art Museum. Are they here? Do we know?
Yes, they
Chris?
are.
They are. All right.
Come up. Dennis,
Parish-
to be honest, unless there's joining open space, that makes sense to take a part in it. It becomes more of like a liability because the town has one
Who would take title?
responsible for maintaining it.
Who would take time?
Then you could just do,
They have to stay in there.
you could do either conservation easement, or you could have them give it to the Common Land Trust or something. Yeah.
Talk to Anthony then.
Yeah.
Hi, welcome. Could you tell us your names for the record?
Yes, my name is Monica Ramirez Montagut. I'm the new director at the Parish Museum.
Great.
It's a pleasure to
Welcome.
meet you all.
Welcome.
And
I'm
your
Lee
name?
Skolnick, architect in Sag Harbor.
Lee, good to see you.
Sometimes in New York, but mostly in Sag Harbor these days. So we wanted to get your input with the very, very early stages of providing signage, identification signage for the parish. Anyone who's been past there or goes there knows there's really no identification out of the street. And it's a problem in terms of visitation and serving the community, but it's also a traffic problem because people rush by it, they don't know it's there, they stop, they turn around. It's kind of a dangerous situation. So we took a lot of time to, just get the right.
Make a left of Liechtenstein.
Right.
Yes, but, thank you for that. Yes, if you know what who Liechtenstein is.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we have between 40,000 and 65,000 people coming visit to the
Oh,
museum.
yeah,
Between 60 to 70% of those folks every year are new to this highway, to this region.
Yes.
And we have heard, particularly from our senior citizens that want to use the museum often, as they live here year-round, or even the bus drivers for the schools. We do have
Right.
tax levy, and when people don't want to come, we receive a lot of money from tax levy. If we cannot serve our communities properly,
Absolutely.
then we're not really maximizing. So we have a 625-foot building, linear building, that people think it's an abandoned factory. Again, if we don't have enough money to do outdoor sculptures, which for now we don't because of COVID, there's very little wayfinding for the lay person. People that know about art identify the Liechtensteins, identify the Isa Gensken.
Yeah.
But we are here serving, our first-time visitors to get us going on the next round of museum patrons of the future. We are the only museum of this caliber in the region, so we do want to be a community resource, and that's why I was hired a year ago, to make sure that I actually maximize all the assets that we have here and make them available and accessible to our local communities. Of course, we serve the seasonal community of New York in the summer, but I am keen on making sure that year-round we are serving our local communities, which is my area of expertise. And for that, we need some sort of wayfinding early enough to let people know you need to start turning, slow down, turn, and on the other side as well.
Right.
It is the number one complaint I get when I go out in the
Wow.
community. I got a half an hour sit down from the New York Times editor that couldn't find the building.
Oh.
And then, of course, local communities. So
Sure.
it's the most pressing issue. And, as I came in, I was told that it's impossible, we will never be able to do that. And so we put it to you all, like, can we be better to our local communities?
So I just want to back up a second. So Parish Art Museum currently has their sign on the gates.
Right.
So it is obviously not front and center,
And when they're open, the gates are open and you can't see the sign.
and so that is what, but any type of operation, it's when you start to operate that you understand what is needed, right? And they're stuck by the code. This is a residential zone. I think it allows a sign of 20 square feet. So that's not appropriate for a property of this size. Kind of like Southampton College, when they came in, they also have a bigger sign, a bigger facility. They had to go get a variance likewise to the Zoning Board of Appeals at the time. So I thought this would be a good first step because you will eventually get this to approve this, but first they'd have to go to the zoning board of appeals for a variance from the size of the sign, given the special circumstances. So I gave them initial feedback. I asked them to make it a little smaller. But this is what they feel they need. There's 2 signs proposed. One is in the middle-ish of the property. It's a little bit of an angle. So it would go in the field area. And I think it's tasteful.
One's coming from New York and the other one's coming
Right.
from
So
Montreal.
what we did is we did a study and analysis of when do you actually see the museum. When you're coming from the east, you'll pass it in a flash.
Oh, yeah, the
Because-
driveway's right there.
Yeah.
The driveway, there's a hill in front of us, and
Yeah.
it's a
It's
turn.
a turn, yeah.
So you don't see it until the last minute. So we wanted to do something there. This is a smaller sign. Coming from the west, you have a long view. And what we did, it just so happens that the angle that the building is to the road is the perfect angle for the sign to be, so that you see it just when you pass the Duck Walk Vineyards. So we angled this in parallel with the building, and we wanted to make it out of the same material as the building, which is just
I'm curious why the lower side, the east sign is, the number is, the street address is so prominent as opposed to
that was
the street address.
Yeah, it
The
was-
top sign
It was
doesn't have.
just, it was a request.
It was a suggestion that, because this is a way smaller sign,
Okay.
and we wanted to put banners and, exhibitions coming up, and it was like, this is gonna be permanent, and what's
Right.
most appropriate is the address, which we thought might be a better way to get it.
But the other
approved.
sign doesn't have your address at all.
We can add it, we can certainly add it, but we thought, it was kind of like a suggestion to
Yeah.
have the number on one side, the shorter one coming from Montauk, and have it a little bit more longer for the folks that have
I
never
mean,
been here.
I mean, we may
Yeah.
not agree.
Oh, okay,
But-
please, go ahead.
but I don't know that the number is that critical, really. Yes, no one's looking for 279, people are looking for the Parish Art
I
Museum.
was just gonna say, if you Google Parish Art Museum and see if the address comes up right at the top, that will tell you whether that number's relevant.
Relevant or not. Mhm.
Yeah.
Some of that's part of fire response too, right?
It doesn't
Isn't
need to, it should be identified
They
somewhere.
are, yeah, I know, they do have some requirements.
Right now,
That's-
Right,
is the
whatever the code
279 on the
requires.
gate?
It's on the gate, but it's like, then this gate is like these metal, it's
Yeah.
not solid, so
And
you
it's,
see
and
through.
it's set way back as well.
So you're seeing the address, name and number against a transparent surface, not a solid one, so there's no contrast,
So that's, the lettering is cut out, it's not backlit or anything?
No, it's not
outside, or-
backlit. These are cut out of the concrete, so they're very deep. They're like 6 or 8 inches deep. These letters are actually forward. So it just makes an interesting interplay of, cutting out and adding on.
And it's the treatment of signage we have inside the museum, in some furniture, like the podium where we speak from, it's the same treatment.
Say any illumination planned?
Yeah, the thought would be, I mean, of course, we're very sensitive to the dark sky issues.
Right.
So we're using the same lighting designer we used at the church in Sag Harbor. And we can light it from the ground, but such that it will never hit anything
Won't-
higher than that
Won't go
line.
beyond that,
So
that's nice.
there'll be no spill at all, but
It'll be a
because,
variance also, though.
yeah.
It will be a variance,
That'll be
because
part of
there's
the
no uplighting
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
the town code, so.
Right.
But if it's very specific, then you can review it and make
Yeah, I
recommendations.
mean, we would submit the parametrics and everything, so you'd see exactly what the spread is.
So we love the parish, we're hearing a little bit smaller on the sign. Is that an option?
Well, actually, this is smaller than what you saw originally.
Yes,
Oh, that's
this is
smaller.
smaller than what I saw,
Oh, good,
yes.
okay. What
This was a
what
lot
is it?
taller, this was twice the size of a person,
Wow.
and it
Oh,
was very
okay.
tall,
Yeah.
which I thought this would be, I
Yeah.
think it's more effective this way.
Yeah.
If you go by there, you'll see that, number one, you're not gonna see this unless it's at least, this is the lowest it could be and be legible from driving by in a car, this 5-foot dimension.
What about it, as your grasses grow there, is it going to block out some of the?
Well, right now, we
It's a
have a
good question.
mock-up up there, and you can't see the sign because the grasses are in front of it, so it would have to be mowed.
So
Yeah,
the,
we would
so
landscape it.
you would maintain that as a mowed area,
Just in
like
front of the
maybe
sign.
just like a
A
just
wedge.
yeah, like a wedge,
Exactly.
okay,
Absolutely.
so you show that on your plan with us at that
Exactly,
point,
'cause
Okay.
the rest is just native grasses, which grow quite tall, and we would keep them everywhere else, but just not in front of the sign.
Oh, you would put that lawn in the front?
Well, we would, we could just mow what's there. You don't
Yeah,
have to
mow.
put it
Yeah,
on
You worked
no, we
hard on
just,
that.
yeah, we just cut back
Yeah,
the
just mow it.
grass. But like, we have a mock-up right now, but if you drive by, you don't see the sign.
I was
It's
gonna
larger
say,
than
I
what we're
thought,
proposing.
yeah, because I've seen it.
Exactly, so and I already
Seen.
got complaints like, I cannot see the sign, you know, but we would mow it, but it's the right size for us to be efficient. I mean, I would hate to cut back the sign and continue to have
Yeah.
wayfinding issues.
Well, what you really don't wanna do is go through the variance process, get the permits, spend the money to build it, and then find out that it doesn't work.
Right, right.
Claire, the lettering, how would this compare, for example, to the winery or some of the other places right
This is
before you
modern.
get to the museum?
This is
In terms of, I'm just
mo-
thinking size, you know, the height of the lettering or anything like that.
Oh,
Is
so
there
duck
anything
box
to-
is kind of large, actually. I don't know how they got.
And it's blue and yellow, and it's on a mountain, it's on a
It's on a-
It's on a
surface, so.
Yeah,
hillock.
it is up.
And we are at grade, so if we wanted to be at that height, we would have to build up, you know.
It may be a pre-existing sign too, in their case, but this, obviously, the design matches this building, I mean, in
Right.
terms of that.
I was just,
so.
as you're coming east, you do pass several buildings with signs. I just
Mhm.
wondered,
Yeah.
is it a whole lot taller or
It's
short, you know,
actually
just-
because of the height of the hillock that the duck walk sign is, I think this is actually lower than the duck walk.
Oh, I would
sign.
imagine, yeah.
Way lower, but we can take photos and compare, but their sign is on top of a mountain that's about
Right.
10 feet tall or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's very, even though the sign is smaller, the site is way more
Right,
prominent
right.
than
I was
ours.
just thinking you might wanna try to make it
This meet,
compatible.
this meets the setback of the 20 feet, how about that one?
Also,
It does,
20 feet,
yes.
great.
That one seems easier to read, and, you know, over the years, people do refer to it as the parish,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm.
so I really like the look of that. Obviously, it's pretty large, and I guess we'd have to think about that.
Mhm.
But this reads a little bit, it's difficult to read it because the lettering is so small. So
Mhm.
if there's a way to modify that, just so it's easier to read and kind of matches that
Well,
aesthetic,
I think we could juggle
it's
the,
nicely
Yeah.
done.
the number and the letters so that the
Mhm.
letters are more prominent.
Yeah.
yeah, we could also go into a rebranding campaign where we focus more on the parish as so that the signs are.
Or
a little
parish art,
similar.
that's the website, right?
Well, it's parish art, yes,
Yeah.
you're right. Our legal,
I
anyway,
mean, this
we
is getting
can
into another
manage.
area, but
Yeah.
I just noticed that one is more difficult. It's difficult to read. You can only see the 279
Well,
from
Part
here,
of
and
the
I have pretty
reason
good
that
eyes.
it's smaller, not just because of the location, but when you see that, you're gonna be almost there already. Whereas
Yeah.
this one, you're gonna see from a great distance.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the fact that the letters are smaller, they're not that small, and you're gonna be pretty close up when you get the first glimpse of it, because
Mhm.
when you make that turn, it just comes, like I said, it comes very
Yeah,
quickly.
that is the edge of the property, so.
Yeah. I do have to say, we went a lot back and forth, whether it's just the parish or, it is important for artists and for the community to identify it
art.
as a museum.
Yes.
So we went back and forth a lot, like, you know, we do wanna say this is a museum, and that's why we have the scale we have, and that's why we have the presence we have. But we can play with stacking them, you know,
Yeah, to
so that the
length- for
parish
the
looks
length of it is
bigger
little.
and art museum reads smaller, as
Yeah.
in that one.
It just, when you get that height and then you have such a long length, it almost feels billboardish,
Mhm.
right? So I,
Mhm.
just caution that.
I mean, it's gonna be
Play around
very
with it.
sculptural, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not
Sure.
gonna look like a graphic, it's gonna look like a piece of sculpture.
That's it, I do have to tell you that our current mock-up, you cannot see it from the street. And so while if we see it clean like that, it does feel like in reality, you know, the grasses can be up to 10 feet tall or something, which we will mow, but it does not feel like that, given that we have a 600 linear feet, you know, behind it. It's just even this photo is taken at a close-up. I mean, that's not how you perceive it. That if you were to stop
In the
and take
middle
the
of the
photo
road.
from here, but basically the sense of space, we're missing the other half,
Right.
which is what
The
in reality
frontage.
you would have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the frontage goes much further west.
Right.
This one was originally a taller sign and
But we were gonna do-
skinnier.
They were banners. Remember
Oh,
we-
it was a
there
banner.
was 3 banners.
Okay.
And you
Do
said forget
would
it.
you, yeah, I said no to banners. So would it be better if it was taller than skinnier? I
It
mean,
could
but I
be
don't know
better.
how you read, it's maybe
I
harder
mean, I
to
think-
read.
I like the design. I think it matches
Yeah.
nicely with the
But
building.
maybe it's more
the readability
parish art.
is really, I'm just thinking about wayfinding and traffic. I wouldn't see that if I was coming from the east,
Yeah.
and I would see that if I was coming from the
Well,
west. And
I-
just playing around
I
with the
think
length
you're
of it.
right.
If you
I mean, I
did
think
look
if
at
we had
art,
the-
that's a personal
If we had the
choice. If
opportunity
we
to
could
go
reduce the size.
taller, and, you could read a sign even if, you're not reading it, you're just seeing it.
Mhm.
As soon as you see the sign, you know that it's the parish. So even if the lettering was going vertically, like up the side, which would make it more legible from a distance, we could do that.
I think
you
it
know,
is
the whole-
nice here. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I mean, the whole design aesthetic of that site, this horizontal
Sure.
linear,
Yes.
you have the roof, and then you have the meadow, and then it
Right.
sort of keeps, I really.
We also have the sculpture, the Liechtenstein, which is
Yes,
vertical.
exactly.
Yeah, you wanna
So
block it.
we don't want to
Yeah.
start
Oh, I love that
competing with
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Right. And also these photos in the winter, like right now, those are big green trees, and
Yeah.
even if that was the case, you could still not see that sign as well. I mean, it doesn't feel that big
Right.
when the trees are
Well,
green.
I don't think anyone thinks it's big. The question is it big enough to be
Well,
real?
the words.
The
mostly.
words.
Yeah.
My fear is that people who are heading west will
Mhm.
see that late and hit their brakes real hard to like, oh, here it is.
Heading
you
west,
know, and
yes.
then lock up there.
Well, I like your idea of
Mhm.
maybe doing the parish large and maybe then stacking art museum. If we
Mhm,
did that, we
mhm.
could make the letters bigger.
Yeah.
Because art museum would get stacked there and parish could
Mhm.
be here.
Would be there,
And
yeah.
then there'd be a similarity between.
And then
the
you
two.
you would shorten the length of it just slightly,
Right.
so it brings the whole thing
Mm-hmm.
a little bit tighter.
That would be better than having the number then? Just
Yeah, I would check the
having
code
Parish
just
Art
to make sure
Museum.
that you meet the requirement
We
for
even
fire
have the number
response or
someplace
whatever.
else, it's always
Yeah.
permitted.
Mhm.
Someplace else, right,
Mhm.
as you enter, so,
Okay.
deliveries know where they're going and things
Mhm.
like that. Okay, so a little bit shorter on that, just, I'll put
Mhm.
that as a note. But,
Mhm.
the next time you would see this is a referral from the
For
CBA.
ZBA,
Yeah,
okay.
so.
But,
And in the meantime, offer a suggestion, if you haven't already spoken to the Department of Transportation, they post attraction signs, museums, galleries, things like that, on Montauk Highway.
There is
There's
a
one
tiny
right
little-
near you
there's a
that says
tiny-
Winery Trail.
Yeah.
And there's one that says parish, but it's
There is
about
one
this
there
big.
already?
It's like
Okay,
this big
it's
and
already
it's
there?
brown.
It's brown, no.
It's
you
there.
would- You would never know it was
You
there.
only see it from the jitney at that height.
Yeah.
You're stuck in traffic. It's
Okay.
like, oh, there's a
Okay.
sign.
Alright.
It doesn't work as a
Doesn't work.
wayfinding.
Doesn't, okay,
Yeah.
just thought it might help,
But we might ask them to place it somewhere else near or a different color. Anyway, thank you. It's
Well,
there and it's
I
not
think there's-
helping
Both
us.
directions.
There's a crosswalk
It's
there,
only in
right?
one direction, yeah.
Oh, that's.
It's only one direction.
Grab the westbound.
But yes, we can ask for the other, yeah, we'll go and
That's a
ask
good
also
idea.
for
Yeah.
what can we do to
We're not
help.
asking for a street light, though.
Street light.
that's a whole nother discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for your
Great.
So
time.
much,
you.
Lee, good seeing
That's
you.
the part.
Thank you, Claire.
You're very welcome.
Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you.
Yes, definitely.
We'll close the afternoon work session and convene the afternoon regular session. We've done the roll call, the pledge. There are no minutes. Are we going in order or?
Let's do it in
clear?
order. Do it.
That would bring Anthony up.
All right. So then, number 3, Hampton 6 Realty Corp. So, poor Tom, our engineer, is so busy.
I can imagine.
But I did get his comments from my other subdivision today. So, Hampton 6 Realty, we're just going to do an extension of the action deadline until August 24th.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second by Craig. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, 4 yes, 3 absent. How about
917
917?
is off the agenda, actually.
Is off, item 4 is off the agenda. Galilee Church of God, item 5. That's on for reapproval.
It is on for reapproval. There's some plans for you, and here's the decision. So we saw this last, that's on June 22nd, and the board, the board had requested that the existing natural vegetation be shown on the map. And we had the surveyor go out there, and they've noted no natural vegetation. There is a couple mounds of dirt and some you know, weeds growing on them, but no natural vegetation on the property. So it's historically cleared and therefore not subject to APOD or the Pine Barrens regulations. So based on that, I'm recommending approval, subject to a couple conditions, the fire marshal and the town engineer, who has reviewed it over the years, but not officially given his review on this project, and that'll be before signature.
Know that Jackie had asked about that if there was any natural vegetation, but then also historically whether there was, so
There
could we
wasn't.
see it, there wasn't?
There wasn't,
Okay,
yeah, we
all
looked
right,
at
thank
the
you.
areas, yeah, good, thank you. So I'm recommending reapproval and proceed with the site plan being valid for 2 years.
We actually had the fire marshal there yesterday,
Okay.
and he only had one.
Oh, sorry,
Welcome.
Yeah, preemptively had the fire marshal come, and he was on board with everything because we had an electrical inspection week prior. Fire marshal had to come and sign off on smoke and CO, and he just recommended we put a knock box at the front door so that they have a key to get in case of emergency.
Great, that was his
Everything else.
comment.
Could we get
Yeah,
your,
and just
name?
verify yourself.
Oh,
we get
my name
the-
is Justin with Advanced GC. I'm the construction consultant for the project.
Okay, Justin Dubinsky?
Connolly.
Connolly, I'm sorry. Justin.
When did you change your name?
Okay,
Great.
very good. Do we have a motion to reapprove? Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 4 yes, 3 absent. Thanks again, folks.
So my next one is Jedi Holding. This is a site plan that is close to being complete. They put all their landscaping in, and we're recommending setting the maintenance bond for an amount of $19,000.
$19,000? Okay.
Yes.
Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Kate, and second, Craig?
I'm reading, hold on.
Sorry. Is that you on the second?
Second.
By Craig, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have 4 yes, 3 absent.
Then
And
my
which
next
brings us
one
to
is
Noyak Golf Club.
Also Noyak Golf Club, this is the same, yep, thanks. Is also setting a maintenance bond there, done with their project, town engineer sign off, and the landscaping's all in order. So
Okay.
this would be a 2-year bond.
2-year bond, very good.
Of $16,300.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig.
Second.
Second by Kate, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have 4 yes, 3 absent.
My next-
Conscience Point Shellfish Hatchery.
Yes. This is a expedited.
Oh, there he is.
Site
How are
plan,
you?
wetlands permits. Decision for you. This is the proposed addition of the shed, pass down those plans. I've got more copies.
I think we had a public hearing.
There's no, actually, it was expedited?
Oh, that's right.
Yes. So you did limited referrals to the fire marshal, who had typical conditions. And the ARB, which indicated approval, to the environmental division, which described the application, supported the application, subject to the AI system being incorporated. It's an existing sanitary system which is being removed, and they're doing a new one.
Sorry, there is no sanitary system present. So it's not-
Oh, so that was wrong?
Yes, it's not a replace, it's a very first one.
Just state your name for the record.
Mark Matthews,
Great.
president of the Conscience Point Shellfish Hatchery.
Can you say again what you said, because I just couldn't hear it because
Yes,
you were
the-
facing Claire?
Sorry, there is no septic system there presently.
Okay,
So
right.
this is a new septic system.
Mhm.
There has never been
Okay.
one.
I didn't think a shed needed a sanitary system, so I was like, okay. So instead, the wording for your condition will be the sanitary system will be a
Yes.
system.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
The town engineer had a couple comments, his typical fee, but I think he got the fees waived in this case, Mark.
Yes.
And provide erosion and sediment control plan, which is pretty standard. And he suggested a French drain, and Mark and I talked about this. Do you, Mark, you wanna speak about this?
Yeah, I talked to Tom about it, and he said that they typically ask for a French drain. I said, are you aware that we've already brought in 18 inches of sand to the property, so it didn't flood every high tide? I said, no, I didn't know that. So he said, he doesn't have the authority to waive the French drain, but you do.
Okay.
And so I would request that we not be held to that, since we brought in a huge amount
Huge amount.
of good sand already.
All right, that makes sense.
What are we doing in lieu of French drain?
You brought the fill in.
We brought the fill in, yeah.
Which is sand, which is very permeable, so,
Very permeable,
yeah,
yeah.
should be acceptable. Do you want me to make a finding to that effect?
Sure,
To say,
sure, yeah.
that there's 18, at least a minimum of 18 inches of sand, which should accommodate the drainage.
Good.
Okay.
We raised the bulkhead, actually.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay, great.
This is about 8 years ago or so.
Okay. So we won't do the French drain.
So Mark, there wasn't a bathroom in where the lab is?
No, there is, we use the marina bathroom,
Oh,
which is down the way, or seasonally, when that's not useful, one of our board members
Howie.
lives right next door.
Come on in.
So,
Kind.
it's really about time we grow up.
Yes,
This is, we're into our 10th year now.
I know, you guys work hard over there.
Okay, so, DEC didn't respond, so it would be both a wetlands permits, the condition would be the sand system should be an IA system, and the planning board would approve the site plan, for the addition, and the conditions would be to provide the erosion and sediment control plans to the satisfaction of the town engineer, eliminate the French drain, and then general conditions, which is the lighting shall comply, the fee or waiver, and I make sure that the wording says waiver, and then the filing of the affidavits and the 3 sets of plans for signature.
Well, the French drain, we just eliminate, right, you could take it off the plans, Mark, right?
It didn't put it on the plans.
There you go, done.
Are there night operations there?
Are there night operations? No. Well, sometime in the middle of the winter, we go down and feed the spat, but there's no outdoor night operation. They'll be inside the hatchery building for as they're coming alive or spawning or that kind of thing.
So complying with dark skies.
It's not a problem at all.
And is, just from when I was there, I'm trying to imagine how the addition goes off, but is it up above, or?
No, there's a little shed, I think about a 120-foot
Right.
shed. It's just adjacent to that.
Adjacent
It
to
shows on the drawings.
Right.
It attaches to it on one side and supports in the.
Yeah, some of the plans were clearer, I think, on the.
Yeah,
right.
no, it's all there. Any other issues for us, Mark?
No, I think we planned this with, the big picture in mind of what's happening at the Maritime Center, the fact that the Maritime Center, the marina property, an opening is being created between our buildings, so there's a pedestrian walkway out to where the launching ramp is and the kayaks and all that, to make these, rather than properties that are walled off one another.
Right.
They're all public, so.
All integrated.
So I think we're doing a good job of that, and
Yeah.
I think that since we've talked, I believe, Aries Design has entered into a contract to formalize a lot of that, the whole planning
Yeah.
of that entrance way to Conscious Point in conjunction with the museum and with the marina property, so.
Yeah,
This is,
that's great.
it's coming along well.
You guys have a good team down there.
I think so.
Yeah, hardworking. Okay, very good, we're good to go. Do we have a motion for approval? Motion by Kate, second by Tom, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Mark, thanks.
Thank you.
again for your hard work.
Welcome.
Took a lot of big bucks for these projects.
And then Jeff said that, the 656 and 664 is, gonna be adjourned.
Okay, do we need a resolution to?
Yeah.
No,
just
it's not an action
acknowledgement
deadline.
On the pre-submission, I think that's fine with that.
We're not an action deadline for the report?
No.
No. Okay, so 9 is off. How about 10? Atlantic. Is Jeff here today?
Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
Unless you want me to do Meadow View. You do Meadow View?
Meadowview?
Amendment? Yeah.
Okay, item 12, let's do it. That's the equestrian facility there.
Do you want to be Jack? Oh, thanks. And then did you know our newest planner?
No.
Teresa Mason.
Teresa?
Hi, Teresa.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Environmental Division.
Oh, came over from the environment?
Yes, she's our principal planner.
Oh,
She'll be with
excellent.
us.
Seen some of my reports, only they're
Right.
See many of your reports.
Yes. I'll go get checked.
Okay.
Thank you.
She's just moving down the hall.
Yes, well, literally she's in the same spot because we have no room,
Oh,
but,
she's not moving anywhere.
yeah, exactly. Oh, you know what, I didn't give the applicant one. I think you have an extra, thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry.
We'll pass these down.
Here's a copy of the plans. This is like an overview of what they intend to do. They're not doing that yet. This is just for the covenant amendments, which we've gotten positive feedback from the Ag Advisory Committee. They agreed so that they could be
Yeah.
moved,
I
so.
remember that we had a public hearing on this.
We did have a public hearing
Yeah.
on this one, yep.
It was a while ago.
Let's see what it
Oh,
was.
Oh,
There was a 10-day written comment period.
Yeah.
There was no public comments during the meeting nor during the public comment period. The Ag Advisory Committee, June 6th, said the use of the property has been a horse farm for decades, as presented by the applicant's attorney. The reasons for changing the boundary of the ag building envelope is to accommodate sought improvements to the facility in response to required setbacks for annual specialty buildings. This relocation presents no issues for the committee. So I recommend it be amended. It seems,
Okay, and you have
seems
some
good. I have,
conditions for us?
yeah, this is the
Not many,
overview on.
but,
Yes, the conditions would be the submission of the modified covenant and approval from the town attorneys, as appropriate.
is there applicant here, or?
Yep.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Please use the podium if you. Seems pretty straightforward. Just tell us your name.
Bailey Larkin with Bennett and Reed, offices at 212 Windmill Lane in Southampton. I don't actually have anything to say on this one, so.
Okay. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay, do we
Discuss this
have
at length.
then, motion to amend the covenant with the 2 conditions?
There's 3 conditions.
3 conditions.
It is the modified covenant, the approval with the town attorney, title certification, and finally the covenant with the county clerk.
Great. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Craig. Second by Tom. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Everyone's getting kind of a workout today. This board. You'll have to stay awake and a lot of other good stuff.
There are only 4 of
Yeah.
us, we're all trying to be very
I mean, I
polite.
could,
Yeah.
I'll do one
Well,
more.
on the good side,
I'm gonna do one
we'll
more.
divide the cookies 4 ways. Right?
Most important.
Oh,
Right?
no. I got more.
That's right.
I have number 18, Oceanside. This is just to reschedule a hearing. This was originally scheduled for September 28th, but the applicant couldn't make it for that date, so we're doing October 12th.
October 12th. Very
Yep.
good. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Kate.
Second?
Second by Craig, all in favor? Aye, opposed, abstentions? We have 4 yes, 3 absent.
Okay, and then we'll let Anthony step in.
What?
Is that mine or yours?
I think that's mine.
There's one here on the floor.
What?
I have one.
Uh-oh, that's yours.
You're the same
Fell on the
size?
floor. I said, oh, that's a little bit.
I'm taking the nicest Jessica.
I'll take the end of the tire tracks out. Which application is this,
Old Stables.
Old
Somebody
Stables?
go first, how about you go?
Okay. We're jumping back to Old Stables, is that it?
I think I-
That's item 11.
There's 2 things I'm giving you with this one. One is the draft resolution And the other is the town engineer's comments that came in today. The applicant couldn't be here, so what I think I'm gonna do is just wanna go over just a few of the, I think, issues that I wanted to clarify with the board, and then we'll come back next time for an amended resolution.
Okay, great.
This is the old stables at Spionk subdivision on North Phillips there.
Yep.
It is a cluster, let me get to,
Across the street from Windermere.
yep.
So that whole corridor now is getting a nice facelift.
Yes,
Every,
it is.
every parcel is getting, slowly but surely getting improved, which is always nice to see.
I know, that was one project at a time. Also, we established that green belt, all these linear maps, every one of them, we were able to get that. So there's a nice corridor. I think there's one or two pieces we still have to bring in, but. God, you should have seen there was a plan a few years ago to cut through, what's the big subdivision, Long Creek Pond,
Oh,
or
yeah.
cut that through, oh my
I'll
God.
just sit here. It's easier, it's in front of the board. So the old stables at Spionk, if you will remember, you can see it there in the yellow,
Yeah.
on North Phillips. It's gonna be a cluster subdivision plan. The open space is gonna be in the back to align with the existing town open space, and if you might recall, 7 lots off a cul-de-sac.
Right.
One of them will be for affordable. It's not an aquifer, and we're getting the open space. If you just go to the resolution, I have all the stuff from the engineer, so I'm gonna incorporate that into this resolution. One issue that popped up from the superintendent highways and from the town engineers, that they don't want the landscape island in the cul-de-sac.
They don't?
They don't. I initially was gonna contest it a little bit, but now I've got the superintendent of highways and the town engineer saying
Yeah.
remove it. So I just think that I had put it in there to remove it from the
Is that a
plans.
townwide design now? or- I mean, if they,
There were-
no?
Is
And
that?
makes it harder for the snow plow.
Yeah.
Right, and there,
Yeah.
I remember there are issues, there's a landscape center kind of to
Yeah.
it. There are issues with people parking on them, driving over them. I
Yeah.
remember this from.
So that was, so I just wanted to give you, you don't even have to make a decision now, because we're gonna come back with the reso, but that was the one issue that popped up twice from 2 agencies, because I happen to like the landscaping
I like
islands,
them
but it breaks up the asphalt, but the other side of it is I don't wanna get into a position where, because then we gotta backtrack to get a homeowners association as opposed to dedication
Oh,
to the
yeah,
town and all the rest of it, you know how that
So
goes.
they're just eliminating the landscape
That's-
island?
that was it.
It'll just be
It'll be that.
asphalt.
Asphalt, yeah.
Asphalt.
Yeah. So that was one issue, and we could ultimately discuss it again. The other thing was, and this comes out of the Environment Division, this is not in the aquifer, we're getting the open space, they're recommending applying the APOD regulations to the lots. I know that this board has done that before, we want to keep trees as much as possible, we are getting a cluster here. It seems that the board typically does this in certain areas, Shinnecock Hills, we do it a lot, I noticed. This doesn't seem to be the area where the planning board typically imposes them. So I don't know how the board feels about it.
How
So
large are the lots?
the lots will be roughly 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, it becomes really problematic, these smaller lots.
It does.
Especially when you have to trench through the utilities in the street.
What I will say is, that the applicant has said, and we'll have again another discussion, he plans on keeping up a lot of the trees anyway,
Yeah.
because to the south of the property, you have some driveways and everything, and, so he said that he will keep up the trees. But I wanted just to clarify and make sure, because I'll revise it, the APOD, it's hard to impose them a lot of times in the non-APOD areas.
Especially on smaller lots.
Especially on smaller lots. And
Yeah.
so, but the other side of it is we are getting the open space, so.
Right.
So we'll
That's the real.
so those were really the 2 big issues that I wanted to resolve with the board. The other thing was there's a request for oh no, I think we're okay on it. The fire hydrant shown in the plan, never mind, the applicant's okay with it, so. I just wanted to make sure on those clearing things because it affects the covenants and restrictions. So if
Yes.
we're okay with it, then I will revise this. It'll include all the engineer's comments, and I'll revise it to eliminate what we're eliminating. And-
So we're not in action. That's-
Well, we are, and I told them we'll do it on the 24th, then I said, but I would present it to the board, so we'll just do an extension of the action deadline to the
So
24th.
you need an extension now?
Yeah.
To the 24th. Great. Do we have a motion? Motion by Craig, second by Kate, all in favor, aye. Opposed, abstentions? We have
And
four
the
yes.
one unintended consequence of clearing on that road is the train station. Because we did a lot of clearing on the, what was it called, the sunflower
Oh, yeah, yeah.
application.
Yeah.
So every time we knock down trees, we're knocking down a natural sound barrier.
Yeah.
And I know this because I live there.
Yeah, no,
So you're like,
I
it's just-
understand.
we're starting, you start to really hear the sound travel a little bit more.
Yeah, no, for sure. And duly noted, and I appreciate that. Okay, so that one's done. And then,
I saw Jeff, oh, Jeff.
yeah, I actually, that applicant is here, so, might as well do Aaron Sachs.
Sachs, okay, we're going to item 13.
Yeah. Sorry about that, Jeff. You handed it to me, so I thought you were inclined to do this. Yeah, you can sit there, and then we'll get to you. Jeff, do you know where my? Oh, here it is.
No, I know what you're talking about, advisory committee.
So, sorry.
Airport we've done. We did one actually, 5 years ago, when the nursing club.
Right.
We did an advisory company there, but most people know, otherwise, no. And we do it, I'm sorry. yeah.
That's okay. This is Aaron Sachs. It's 132 Lewis Road. It's, let's see, I messed up over there. It's just a 2-lot subdivision, R20 zoning district. It's not in any overlay districts or anything like that. We did a covenant amendment for this one, very similar to the subdivision back here. This lot and this lot were part of a previous subdivision, and you amended the covenant restriction on each so they could be subdivided. This one up here is being subdivided the same way as the one in the back. It's a 2-lot subdivision. On Lewis Road. This is the town park to the south here along the highway there.
Oh, okay.
And then the 2 lots here, one for the existing residents, didn't require any zoning relief. And so I have a resolution, because this was a final application. Pretty straightforward. Let me just see here. Okay. At the first page there. So it's all a description of the application. If you go to the bottom for the findings, whereas the planning board makes the following findings. That was a type 2 action under secret and no further environmental review. May 25th, 2023, we deemed the application, this board deemed the application complete and scheduled the public hearing, or waived the final hearing with a 30-day written comment period. No comments were received. We didn't get any during the pre-app either. Pre-application report, July 14th, 2022, and this application is consistent with that. Health Department issued the approval for this November 18th of 2022. This subdivision is not subject to Long Island Workforce Housing Act. And because it's only a 2-lot subdivision with an existing residence, the park fee will be paid with a flat fee. It's $2,500 actually. So we did some referrals. We did a referral to the town engineer. We had discussions initially about flagged common driveway or not. So basically, he's just requiring the 3-inch rainfall covenant, which is standard. And then just some minor map changes if there's going to be a common driveway or not. So we'll get to that. Conservation Board made some recommendations. They're recommending, well, obviously it's the high priority area, but it's all going to be IA systems now. They're recommending a 35-foot buffer along the northerly property line from the adjacent residential properties. And then along the proposed flag strip, there's an existing hedge that they're recommending be preserved. So we'll talk about that.
Regarding that, it says covenant, a conservation easement or covenanted naturally vegetated buffer, which is recommended, Christine?
Well,
Sorry.
It's just the conservation board, in order to like maintain that 35-foot buffer that's existing, they had said a conservation easement or covenanted naturally vegetated buffer. Which mechanism would you recommend? And maybe we should just put that in our resolution as.
yeah, we normally, planning board normally puts them in the covenants and restrictions. I'm recommending
It
the
would
20.
be, yeah, because that would then be on the landowner as opposed to doing the easement, which would then be on us.
Okay.
Typically, and you'll see when we get there, I recommend 25 feet.
And then
Oh,
when,
sorry.
if someone purchased that, they would have that then in their, you know.
It would be under deed
Under
restricted, it
their-
would be restricted, if they can come in and ask, obviously.
Mhm.
There's always a provision to be able to get relief, but it's
Mhm.
there when they purchase it.
Right, so it comes up when the, like, the
Title
title
report.
search
Yeah,
happens?
it
Okay,
should.
so that's great.
Then we have the fire prevention. Didn't make any specific recommendations. Actually, they did. If you turn to page 4. This didn't come out of the pre-application. It also didn't come out of the prior subdivision, which is right here. There is a hydrant to the north on Lewis Road, and then there's also another one on Montauk Highway. The town's Office of Fire Prevention is recommending a fire hydrant in this particular case. So
What's the separation now?
800 feet is what they're saying.
Right now, it's 800, so this would bring it down to 400? I thought 1,000 feet was,
That's my understanding. So that's why I graded out.
and this came from the.
Fire prevention. It came from fire prevention. I didn't get any comments from the fire district.
They might not be aware there's another, maybe they didn't pick it up in the survey.
Could be. I make sure I always look to see, because our GIS has them. So there is one to the north, and there's another one on Montauk Highway. Maybe they missed the one on Montauk Highway.
Yeah.
And the Montauk Highway one is within the.
It's probably less than 800 feet
Oh,
than that, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Too late to go back and question if the standard's 1,000 feet, why they're asking for one.
well, let's see what the applicant has to say too, and then we'll. Highway Department just always mentions raising aprons so that the runoff doesn't end up onto the property. So that was it for that. And then I'm recommending approval with the condition. So here's my question. Do we want a first common driveway here? Or there's an existing driveway serving the lot, and that could be a second. Then to the south of this, right adjacent to this flag strip, there's a flag strip with a common driveway to the other two lots. So I just wanted to see how this board wanted to handle that.
Common driveway would make sense,
Common driveway.
especially with the school.
So the common driveway is what we're gonna do. And that's okay, just so you know, it's not a major map. It's a cross-section that they put on a map. It's not a lot of details for a common driveway. So, okay. So on that one, per the town engineer, so I'll have to revise that to include a
That doesn't
common.
interfere with the current driveway that's going into the garage, right? Because
Why don't you come up?
where do you want me to come?
You can come
Here?
in or there.
Wherever you want me.
We need a microphone.
We have a. Just
You can sit there, that's
You can
fine.
sit there. I can-
State your
There's
name.
a microphone. Huh? Aaron Sachs, 132 Lewis Road.
So when they say common, I think that they're talking about a common access point out to Lewis.
Yeah, so
Once you
here's
get
what I'm
a-
thinking, Dennis, you're right. It's not as drastic as I make it sound. Because they have, so you're gonna do a common driveway up to like this point, right? And utilities, and then you're still gonna come off here.
Right.
Right, because that's not how I pull in my driveway. So I pull in my driveway, my asphalt driveway there, because that goes to the garage. The stone was put in because when I was fire chief, which we'll get back to the hydrant, because I've been a fire chief and a fire commissioner, I would pull out circular. It became a circular driveway. I made it with that stone. But my actual asphalt driveway goes to a garage that's there. So, common-wise, I mean, I have no problem sharing part of a driveway that goes all the way across, but I still have a garage currently.
Well, it's not gonna be practical then.
I'm not gonna be able to pull in and pull into the
Yeah.
garage.
So we'll have to leave it the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
If
okay.
we're a brand new
I always
lot.
grade these things out when they're a
Yeah.
little questionable, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
That make-
I
What
guess
what were you
the-
gonna tell us about the hydrant?
Well, so I was fire chief when the other subdivision was done, and I've also sat on the fire commissioner board, and that 1,000 feet has always been the distance, and that's how we design our fire engines and everything for 1,000 feet max. So when I read the 800, I kind of chuckled because I was like, 200 plus feet.
You know, and you probably have one, you know, on Montauk.
There's two on Montauk.
Yeah, there's one down here and there's one in the opposite
Correct.
direction too.
And then there's another one up further, which is the more appropriate hydrant to hit if we were fighting a fire there.
So if it were to go forward, it'd be 400 feet apart.
It's still about, well, from the further hydrant, it's about 800. It's about 600 from the ones on Montauk.
The existing hydrant.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I think we'd have to ask why they're asking for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did hear that at the district meeting, it came up about how come they didn't question it on that other subdivision, because they're 250 feet. They're over
Further.
1,000 feet almost, because they're
Okay.
further back, right?
Right. I mean, find out, have the standards changed or something? I mean,
They were the same. Like I said, I was chief in
I would
2010
think
when
you
the other one was. So.
You would know,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Okay, that's, all right, so that's good information. How do you feel, my recommendation is a 25-foot buffer along this property line.
Is it wooded now?
Yeah, it is, I mean, here, let me show you. So this is the property here. Could be along here. It's up to the board, I just,
Right.
you know, if it comes out of conservation, I'll make sure we address it. And
Yeah.
this board
Why
knows
you-
I'm not shy if I agree or disagree.
You're
with
asking for a
something.
25-foot buffer on
Yeah.
non-disturbance buffer.
So conservation recommended 35
They
foot,
recommend 35
you're
feet.
recommending 25.
I'm recommending
just-
25 feet.
Yeah.
If you want to know my reasoning behind it, I typically. Oh,
Why
I try
not?
to, it's only because it's not a zoning requirement, it's not a design standard, so I try to come up with something that's more consistent with, that won't encroach on their ability to build on the property with setbacks. So 25 foot, you're gonna keep the principal building off by 20 feet or whatever it is. So I try to just be consistent with the zoning setbacks. That's all, that's all.
So it's on the northerly
The north
side,
side,
not the side towards the park.
This side.
Right.
Right now, that was the second question, is about the hedge along what would be the common, interestingly, the hedge doesn't impact the driveway, the ability to put in a driveway for the back lot, so I didn't, you know, it's adjacent to a driveway, but which is adjacent to the town, so I didn't know how you felt about the.
Well, it's going to benefit you to keep the hedge, right?
Yeah, I had no plans on taking down the hedge. I had no problems with. The comment I had about the corridor, the nature corridor, is it's all fenced in. All but 30 feet of the rear lot is fenced in. So
I think they're talking about the north.
yeah, on the north side.
Yeah.
You know, all the neighbors have wall fencing all the way,
Oh, they do?
all the
yeah.
way down, and the guy in the back built a tennis court, a basketball court back there.
Oh, yeah, I see
So
that.
I'm like, because like Anthony said, this is the sister subdivision lot to those in the back. I'm like, well, there was none there, and put a hard court in,
There was
and,
no-
and it's
there were
all
no-
fenced in, so I'm not sure what deer, if deer and animals are running through, I would think they'd run through more of the open park land. So,
Anthony, what's your feeling?
You know, the reason why, that's why I went down with the 25 feet, because I just felt in that instance, it won't interfere with the ability to build on the property, is my opinion. And that way, you know, you're buffering from the neighbors.
Is it 25 feet, like, along the northerly portion and the westerly? Or, because
Just
it's gonna get into two lots, right? So-
I was recommending it along this property line, it affects, you know,
Just the
1, 2,
northerly
3,
property.
3 lots. This is pretty clear back here.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think we'll, you know, try and get that buffer on the northern lot.
I mean, if
25
you're
feet.
trying to create a wildlife corridor, it makes sense to go down this way and then down to the park. So, I mean, it's just a matter of what the goal is, right? Like,
Right.
if it's,
and it realistically, so if you look at where the park is, and then the woodland that comes through, it comes down through the park, and then the wildlife actually does cross over where the park is, does come down the driveway I see, and they cross over to the lot across the street, because that's town-owned property across the street.
Right.
And then they run that corridor all the way over to Central Avenue from that corridor.
yeah, like not through your.
Right, not
fence.
through my property, right.
Yeah.
Because it's all fenced, so they can't get in there.
Little give and take, how about, because we're dealing with one now, we usually, how about 20 and 20? Do 20 along the north and 20 along the back. That's within the setbacks, it really shouldn't affect, like I said, a building envelope on the property. Is that a compromise? I'm throwing everything out there.
Right. And the properties north of that, do any of them have?
They're all fenced.
Right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, we should do something because it's APOD, right?
It's not APOD.
Oh, so
No.
this isn't, I'm sorry, I'm looking at 64 Lewis Road because I had Lewis Road in my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
All right,
Lewis
okay,
Road
yeah,
on the
so
market is always-
that
Yeah.
makes sense,
I mean,
25,
they're small
25
lot,
then?
you know, small half-acre lots.
Which is
that-
nice for you too, I mean, to keep some,
Yeah, I mean, obviously you
Vegetation
can
on
see
there.
I've been living there since 2007. I haven't cleared much. I like to live a little bit in the secluded area.
Mhm.
And I'm not big about clearing it, obviously.
so
But,
you're saying 25 westerly, 25
I think it's
northerly?
a 20
compromise, just do 20 across the
20
whole
foot.
thing, 20 and 20.
Mhm.
The 20-foot along those two sides that were
Well, I just get a little concerned if we start doing that westerly,
on
you
the
know.
westerly.
The south is, the northerly is,
Yeah.
you know, doesn't, you know, it impedes on the building that's gonna go up there where the hand is, where the hand was. Obviously is gonna face the park like the one next to it. So
Right.
the 20, if we did 20 feet in the back, it's gonna be in their backyard, right, with it up against a basketball court. The 20 by me doesn't really matter, cause it's my side yard. It's
Does
an
the-
odd
Being on
corner
north- on
up
the
there,
north
so it's
side.
not like, yeah, on the north side, it's not like that impedes on my property,
All right,
on
let's
my
just
front
do
lot,
the
cause I
north
plan on
side then.
staying there.
So it's up, yeah, it's up to the board. I guess,
Yeah,
whatever the
let's
board
just
says.
do the north
Does
side
the
then.
buffer affect the building envelope calculation?
Does it affect the building envelope calculation?
No, the building calculations are taken from the property line.
Right.
Take it from the property.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, your building envelope isn't measured then from the buffer area, it's still measured from the property line.
And the setback is
That's-
still
So a
there.
setback, you know, if your rear yard setback for a principal structure is 50 feet or 40 feet or whatever it is, obviously that's gonna be outside of the buffer. That's why I'm using the 20 foot. Whatever the board wants to do is okay in this case.
I mean, we're either going to,
You have
in
to do
this
two or
case,
one.
if it's wildlife corridor, it's not just for deer, you know, it's contiguous, like mature oak woodlands, and that's what the recommendation and the intent of the conservation board was, is that it's adjacent to town park to sort of create, you know, a corridor along there. So I think, you know, you either do it along the westerly and northerly, or we say we don't agree, and, you know, hopefully Mr. Sachs doesn't clear his whole property. Because it's like, it's not required, right? So, I mean,
Is it primarily oaks on the property?
yeah, they're
Mostly
saying
oaks,
mature
yeah.
oaks and,
But there's no
Yeah.
connection, I mean, you have common driveway, right?
There's a common, yeah, there's a driveway here.
Yeah.
That's why I graded out, this was just one of those recommendations that I couldn't come to this board and be, you know, you need to do
I mean,
this.
they usually ask for these
I mean-
things for nesting birds to, you know, to
Yeah, yeah.
have
like,
it,
to
so-
my mind, like, it's funny because like, it's like discussing like, oh, well, what's the value here, right? Like,
Right.
oh, are you gonna maintain like the right to build, or I would buy a property that had a 25-foot covenant and buffer because I think that's valuable, right? You know, so I would recommend the 25-25 as you suggested at first, and, you know, if somebody has a nice mature oak forest next to them in perpetuity, seems like a great idea to me, but it's what your goal is, and
Yeah,
what
I
you're right
think-
is within your goals,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I would be concerned about the west side of the property line having any corridor natural, because that's gonna be their side yard, and with a normal side yard setback, that means there's no grass there, there's no, you know, that they're stuck with, whoever builds there is stuck with that layout, right?
Yeah, it's pretty narrow.
And that's pretty narrow and tight in that sense, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna be narrow and tight as it is.
I agree.
So then I'd say, let's take what the conservation board recommended and do the 35 along the northerly, so you're maintaining the habitat that was the intention of this recommendation of the conservation board.
I just, again, we'll go back to that other lot being 35 from their rear yard.
25
We're
is
gonna have
better?
to make a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know,
We get it, you don't want to do the buffer, so, what does the board want to do? That's the bottom line at this stage, okay.
Do you find 25 to be more suitable along the
I
northerly?
think the compromise,
I think
maybe
that's
it's
where
25 on
we are.
the northerly.
okay.
Yeah,
Let's do 25 on the northerly then.
Yeah.
okay.
We'll get something out of it. Okay. So that's the way I'm going to do that. And you said you're okay with the hedgerow, that one you're okay with?
Yeah.
That actually is good to separate the driveways. We've done this
Yeah.
before, that is what you know.
Yeah.
All right, so let's continue down on page 4 of that resolution.
Before we move on, does this board normally consider fall zones for trees? Like the fall range?
No.
If in the event of a storm landing on a structure?
I mean, you,
That was more of a curiosity question, because that's the question that keeps running through my mind, like,
I mean, there's a tree, I think, in those buffers, it does permit a certain amount of maintenance. You know, if you have a tree that's leaning dangerously, you
Yeah, for
can
sure.
go in.
right.
And they just don't want the understory disturbed.
Yeah, I just went to a property, the guy had to remove several trees that were just
Yeah.
coming down on his house.
So-
Yeah, there are definitely several trees in there that are
Or what?
danger, rotting, falling, leaning.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you
Yeah.
about the health of those trees,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, there are definitely a lot of
But you're
trees
allowed
that are
to,
not.
you're allowed
Up to the
to
property owner.
Yeah, those, you could always, for safety purposes and
Yeah.
all the rest of it.
take them down.
On the resolution, number 3, page 4, park fee 2,500. Declaration of covenants and restrictions, no further subdivision, no lot line changes without planning board approval, no new utility poles for proposed lot. Is lot 1 the one in the back or the one in the,
I believe lot 1 is the floor.
let's see here, I'll fix that.
Lot 1 is the.
Yeah, it's gonna say no new utility, overhead utility lines is basically what that's gonna say. I'll make sure it's the proper. Because this first lot already has existing.
It does.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So then number 4, lots 1 and 2 are subject to a 25-foot wide naturally vegetated non-disturbance buffer, which shall remain in its natural state and free of clearing, grading, and ground disturbance and structures.
We'll say along the northerly property line.
Yeah,
Right.
it should say that. And then there should be the provision in there that allows them to come back to the planning board if they need to remove anything in there. So I'll make sure that language goes in there. The hedgerow on the flag strip of Lot 2 shall be maintained. I think maybe a hedgerow or, what do you think, similar evergreen, in case they did want to come back and take it? Or do you just say keep the hedgerow as it is?
Well, it's a hedgerow, I mean, you want to be able to maintain the hedgerow.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean, but, because the way I have in here, I say a hedgerow or similar evergreen planting along the flag strip of Lot 2.
Does that,
That works.
is it redundant to say southerly or is flag strip? I mean, that's adequate description?
I'll play
Yeah,
southerly.
Southerly
Yeah,
will never
no,
change.
No, 100%, Tom should be more specific, for sure.
Because we're talking about lot 2's flag, the south side of that versus
Yeah,
the
with
other
the hedges,
driveway,
yeah.
where the current one is.
So I should say that. All new utilities shall be installed underground. Again, I'll just make sure the lot numbers are correct. The 3-inch rainfall, that's the covenant from the town engineer, and then the retention of all stormwater runoff on the property. Number 9 is being scratched, as you know. No common driveway and utility easement. So number 10 is also scratched then. Compliance with the driveway standards pursuant to Town Code 330-362. 6 is being scratched, we're not doing a common driveway. Submission of a mortgage consent if it's applicable. Title certification, attorney approval of all legal documents, 4 Mylars and 10 paper prints of the final maps. And then submission for signature. That's all said and done.
Anybody have a question?
Nope, that's pretty good.
All right. Good to go. Do we have a
Thank you.
motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Tom, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And it'll take me 20 seconds, but let's do 15, 16, and 17, because they're all extensions.
Okay.
Oh.
Hang on. Rothman Dynasty, item 15.
Yes, we're gonna do an extension of the action deadline until September 14th, 2023. I'm still doing the wetlands referral on that
Oh,
one, so
okay.
that's the reason why.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Kate, second by Craig, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 4 yes. How about 325 Rose Hill?
That's also gonna be an extension of the action deadline until September 14th, 2023, also for the wetlands referral.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion?
Motion by Craig, second by Tom, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? 4 yes. And Joseph Padilla.
Yep, I just have to, just give me 1 second. One second, I'm so sorry. This is, and it's retroactive, this is an extension for them to submit the final maps for a 3-lot subdivision of Joseph Padilla. And it is from July 11th to October 12th it was.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig, second by Tom, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, we have 4 yes.
I think I'm done.
Clear.
We have one.
Well, Jeff, you gonna jump in?
Yes, we have one.
Come on up.
So we can jump to number. Jump back to number.
10? Like to call?
Number 9, the applicant's representative, dated August, or a memo dated August 9th, 2023, has requested an adjournment.
And we did that.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you did it, okay,
Yeah.
I just want to make
Yeah.
sure.
We're on
Okay,
10.
perfect.
Okay.
Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and move forward to number 10.
10
This is
Atlantic
Atlantic
Golf.
Golf Club Turf Bar, and this is a staff report. Yeah, hold on.
Thanks.
I'm short one. You guys mind sharing?
That's not a
one?
problem.
Let me pull it up for you. This one is Atlantic Golf Club at 1040 Scottle Hole Road in Bridgehampton. This is for the existing barn that abuts Shorts Pond. Was before the board before. They're proposing an addition on the west side of the property, as well as dormer additions on the existing footprint of the property. I'll give you the plans here. So the staff report was generated just before we render our decision on the application itself. We sent out referrals, received some comments back, which are included in the staff report. From a secret standpoint, and actually let me just go based off of the application description again. It's for the construction of a 1,254 square foot addition, reconstruction of an existing 3,633.25 square foot storage building, dormer addition, proposed employee bathroom, installation of an IA system, sanitary system, replacement of an aging slab, and replacement of an existing 792 square foot gravel driveway with a 5,150 square foot permeable stone pavers and proposed asphalt driveway to the south of the proposed barn. From a secret standpoint, it was determined as secret was an unlisted action by resolution dated May 11th, 2023. We assumed lead agency and a neg deck was issued as a result. At the pre-submission stage of this application, the applicant requested a waiver of public hearing, since there is no public interest at the pre-submission stage, but a 10-day written comment period was left open for any additional comments. No comments were received during that period. Now to the referrals. I've highlighted some of the comments for each referral. So for the Department of Fire Prevention, received June 22nd, 2023. The one recommendation that was noted here is they recommend the installation of an additional hydrant near the maintenance building and turf building. The private fire hydrant on the property is in excess of 800 feet from the maintenance and turf buildings. And Suffolk County Water Authority hydrant located on Scuttle Hole Road is in excess of 1,000 feet from the maintenance and turf buildings. So that was one recommendation from fire prevention. This was also referred to the town ARB, memo dated June 20th, 2023. ARB did indicate approval as the site plan itself is situated. Conservation Board, which is probably going to be most of our discussion today, is the comments from the Conservation Board. They have have about 8, 9 comments here, so I'll keep it short. We can move towards number 3 particularly. Number 3, and I'll read it for you. As previously communicated to the applicant, there are no substantive concerns regarding the landward barn expansion and dormer additions. There are, however, significant reservations regarding the intended perpetuation of the pre-existing wetlands non-conforming barn, parking and access areas by conversion and formalization to pervious pavers. The interests of betterment and wetland protection, the barn needs to be renovated so as to reorient the primary access doors to the south of the structure, together with the relocation of main parking and vehicular access to this area, in order to comply as much as is practicable with the minimum required 100-foot wetland construction setback as per 325-9A. So just so we can clarify what the Conservation Board is discussing or pointing out. Bring this one up for you.
They want to bring the pre-existing non-conforming into compliance with current standards to protect the wetland.
Yeah, so they're also proposing, see if I can pull up the site plan, here we go. So yes, so we want to, there's a overhead door on the west, actually east side of the property here that they essentially want to eliminate and reorient to the front. This way, any access wouldn't be taken from its closest point to the wetlands boundary. Also, the size of the permeable pavers, they'd like to reduce that as well, so that the, right now, it looks like it does encroach as far as a little bit beyond the 75-foot wetlands boundary marker. And obviously the 100-foot line, as you can see on the site plan, runs right through where they're proposing the permeable pavers. So they wanted a modification in that regard in an effort to comply with 325-9A. Now there is an existing non-formal driveway there now, which is comprised of gravel and dirt, which does extend beyond even the 75-foot wetland setback. So essentially, I'm leaving it to the board.
Can you overlay the site plan on, can you overlay the site plan formalization of the pavers over this aerial? Is that possible?
No, I don't have that capability. No.
Is it bigger, Tony? Maybe you can come up.
Is that right? Sure. Come forward.
Sorry, leave that to you.
I can run through a bunch of these items with you.
Just tell us your name for the record.
Yeah, Tony Panza, architect for Atlantic Golf Club. Yeah, one item that Jeff touched upon earlier, which was with the fire marshal adding the fire hydrant. The club is certainly fine with adding that because they have one up by the clubhouse, and one being in the location of the housing in the turf barn is something that we've definitely put in there. Regarding the comments from the Conservation Board, I'll be quite honest about it. I was taken aback by the extensive comments because I make it a point prior to pre-submission or for you deciding on pre-submission to go through it. And the reason why there are permeable pavers in the project wasn't because the club just thought, hey, let's put permeable pavers in. It was because of a discussion to say, you know what, we have rocks and dirt down there. Wouldn't it be better if we put in permeable pavers so that the conditions of the existing site are such that it's very difficult to see there, but there is drainage that is being proposed to take out. And that drainage is currently taking some of the runoff from the dirt and rock area and going into storm drains, which go towards Shorts Pond. And we said we want to get rid of that. And then we want to regrade and put in the permeable pavers so that nothing flows towards Shorts Pond. It stays in the permeable paver area and in the new drainage, the new dry wells. So we know avoid anything going into Shorts Pond. So that's why the permeable pavers are there. There's, in terms of some of the other comments, it was actually suggested in number 3 that the main doors be moved from the east side of the building to the south side. It was improperly referenced in the conservation report. The doors are on the south side. They face the road. There is a single door, as Jeff pointed out, on the east side, and it's because of the depth of the building that we just need some form of access back there. And it's always been that way. And so I should have started off with that. The barn, this barn, and also the Patana barn, which some of you might be aware of on Scuttle Hole Road, which the highway department went in and decided to clear out a whole bunch of trees, so now you can see that barn quite extensively. When the board approved the Atlantic Golf Club in 1989, it was that barn there and that the other barn would be allowed to be stayed in use, and that so these two areas and the connection of them were approved then, and the club has not encroached upon Shorts Pond any more than it is. So they're just looking to continue with what they had, along with the access out. That's the cart path that goes out. It's actually not for golf carts, it's for utility carts. It's because this is another item that's mentioned in the conservation report, that could that be moved up. The reason why it's where it is so that when they get out past that hole, they don't get hit by golf balls. It's also a steep slope in that location there. So with the doors that are currently on the south side, the intention was to keep them there. The building doesn't have any man doors in it, which is kind of funny, so we would put those in for egress. So I jumped around, but I'd be glad to go through line by line each of the items that the conservation is asking for. I think.
Is the conservation board aware of
Yes.
your input?
Yes, I went back to them and discussed it with them, and it was not the conservation board, with Marty, and he said it's a advisory report. So there's a couple.
The conservation board didn't hear your description that you're giving us?
No.
Well, I mean, when we first had our work session on this, I remember we were talking about the permeable pavers and the dry wells, and it does actually provide a protection from runoff. I guess the new information or suggestion that's being made by the Conservation Board is whether the parking could be reconfigured where you'd be move the parking landward so that you're protecting that even more. But it's not required, it's
Yeah, so
something to consider. So did the,
The
did
difficulty
Atlantic
in
consider
that is if Jeff, if you could go, well, you can actually go there. If you zoom in on that, so the area that is there, right, and I have images, from 20 years back, it hasn't grown. The reason why it's on the east side of it is because everything in the front, on the south side, is viewed from Scuttle Hole Road. And as you know, from this application and from other applications that Atlantic comes across, the view from Scuttle Hole Road is very important to a lot of people. And so to take that area and move it to, then we'd be putting it in front of the building in view of Scuttle Hole Road. The use of it is very important. That's where all the equipment is used for the golf course. And it would also involve taking out a couple of trees and regrading. So
looks like it's also in the pathway of the fairway there.
Yeah. Like I said, I think we always want, Atlantic is a good steward. When anything ever comes up, it goes to, environmental and says, can we cut down a couple of branches? They don't go and just clear things out, and that's why the actually on that image there, if you look, how do I go to it? On the very bottom of the pond, just to your right, you can see where that whole group of trees are set in right there, just right above where you're pointing, Jeff. If you go back in time, there was nothing there, but Atlantic is to the point where anything within the setback we don't touch. So there was a vista of the pond at one point, but because of the rules and regulations, they just let it go. But it is quite important that the area that they've always used for being able to maneuver equipment, but that's why we wanted to continue to use it and put the permeable paver in. We chose not to bring the permeable paver all the way to the edge, and I know you were looking for the overlay. of this on top of it. The permeable pavers do not come all the way to the edge of the rock and dirt. So on that drawing, the rock and dirt is that line there. But
Okay.
we recognize that there's a 75-foot setback, and we don't want to go and put it in there except to get to the path which is going out at the upper part of the drawing. And that's why it ends in that straight line right there by where Jeff.
There, that little triangle is
there,
just like
yeah.
that.
From the
Yeah.
photo, it looks like that dirt is pretty compacted at this point, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's rock, it's dirt, I don't know, we can't really label it as anything, it's not like it's
Right.
loose gravel, it's rock and dirt.
So the pavers
Pavers are,
theoretically will
yes.
increase drainage, not.
would,
Improve the
would
drainage.
insert, would actually increase, I mean, the whole idea behind the permeable pavers is that you're not shedding the water across it where it goes to Shorts Pond, it goes in between, and then it percolates through the soil, cleansing it quicker. But a dry well, in essence, is actually bringing it down to the water table quicker. A permeable paver is doing it much slower. There's also a recommendation that there's asphalt within 200 feet, and it's shown there, and we recognize that there is asphalt. It's the current driveway coming down, and it's a steep slope. We would love to go and put permeable pavers on that steep slope. It's kind of hidden underneath the trees there.
Oh, right.
But it's a steep slope, and putting permeable pavers, or as also noted in there, loose gravel, is not something we want to put on a steep slope.
Right. Yeah, and to your point about the scenic view, putting the car parking in the front there, that presents a whole another set
Yeah.
of problems, which we'll all get yelled at.
But where that steep slope is of asphalt that we'd like to keep, all of that drainage comes down and it goes to either dry wells or to the permeable, so it will not make it to Shorts Pond.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if there's an opportunity for you to go speak and explain some of this to the Conservation Board in the hopes that they would change their recommendations.
Well,
Otherwise, we have to either overrule them or go along with them without them having heard the benefit of a lot of what you're saying.
But we can make findings that the comments have been incorporated into the plan. When you do the resolution.
Yeah.
In other words, we state the recommendation and then as a finding, and then how your plan achieves the
that.
goal that you do.
I mean, we talked also, so like this is what I was thinking about when I had said you put permeable pavers and you have your dry wells, but you also have a vegetated swale that like also captures, fills, and filters. But, so without really knowing true geology of what's happening, I think it's an improvement, and conservation, to my mind, is just saying, oh, but if you would consider this, it would be even better. Just, and could any plantings be incorporated along that Shorts Pond side that,
I don't think, from where the fence is there, the split rail fence, everything on the other side of it.
is already vegetated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's actually some,
So- And then, are there new dry wells going in?
the dry wells
Or
would
they're already
only
there?
be, where those 4 circles are, well, that one there, but then the other ones, everything that is permeable paver doesn't require a dry well. So the dry well is only for when it's coming down a steep slope or the roof
Are they
leaders.
there now, or are they being put in?
They be put in.
Right, so
There's
I
a-
mean, that's even, like, you've got a slip and slide going across, like, a very open surface, so all that runoff is probably going into the pond
the
right
pond.
now. So I see what you're trying to accomplish of adding dry wells on the hard surface and then slowing everything down across the permeable. I feel it's an improvement, and I think
Yeah.
it looks good.
That's what we'll be incorporating into the resolution.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Another part of this application that we're still kind of investigating, the structure wasn't necessarily, or the application wasn't necessarily referred to the Landmarks Historical Review Board. The discards and/or property record card does provide us with approximate year built of 1940. The Conservation Board also mentions that this probably needs to be referred to the Landmark Historic Review Board. I spoke to the applicant's representative, Tony, and the structural members of the existing barn are more consistent with a 1950 to 1970 year. If you date back to the pre-existing CO, the pre-existing CO was issued in 1976. It calls out this structure as a horse barn and also being remodeled at the time of the issuance of the pre-existing CO. But it's still difficult for us to determine exactly whether or not it is 75 years old or older, or if it's been renovated since. So at this juncture, we've made a referral to the Landmark Historic Review Board. They may just elect to review this application at the building permit stage and provide an advisory report at that stage as well. But I figured to give the planning board an opportunity to take a quick look at it, and also the applicant can give his explanation he provided me.
Was never thought of as an issue for ourselves with the application. These are some photos of the interior of it. I would date it more as 76 to 86.
Yeah.
That's the 2x4, 2x6, 2x8 framing. All the headers are built-up headers. There's steel lolly columns, there's galvanized joist hangers, there's plywood siding, plywood sheathing with the siding on the exterior. So this is another item that came up as part of the Conservation Board comments. It was the last comment in there. I was taken a little taken aback because the Conservation Board was commenting of not being in the building, and if they go in the building, they can see that it's modern construction.
Asked and answered. Good.
I spoke again, we spoke to the building
That's
inspectors.
what the purpose is, right? It's a
and
question and you answered it.
Another concern from the Conservation Board, and it's kind of already in play, but I think, Claire, if you can add, chime in. The Atlantic Golf Club had an application for the board for staff housing back in 2021. As part of the application, they were supposed to establish a 100-foot buffer, non-disturbance, non-fertilization buffer, I believe, around the entirety of Shorts Pond. They've not progressed that application since that approval, so there is no covenanted buffer established on the property. The board can do that with this application as well, provide additional buffering and screening from the concerns of wetlands, Shorts Pond. So I'm not sure if the board wants to go ahead and establish it with this application, and I know they have to come back, like we discussed, they have to come back with the staff housing application because of the change in the code, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So, as far as we know, right now, that application doesn't exist. It's been withdrawn. Or the action the planning board took. So there's no covenant now. I mean, there was going to be with that action, and that would be appropriate new construction. You would establish a buffer. If it does come back, then at that time, we would establish a buffer. But in this case, because it is a second-story addition, basically, it doesn't make any sense.
And the other thing about that, as drawn up and agreed to at the time, it did establish the buffer, but it also did designate that those structures and areas of asphalt, dirt, rock, within the 100 feet that are pre-existing and used by the golf club, being this barn, the potato barn, the area of dirt we're talking about outside, were allowed to be pulled outside of it, given that the club was going to give the 100-foot easement around the whole pond.
Mm-hmm. So we can establish that within this application? Minus, obviously, the areas that you're indicating here.
Well, I think what we're hearing is this really isn't the application that would trigger that type of,
correct.
That type of, if and when the housing comes back in, I don't know what the status of that. I'm assuming that still may come in.
We didn't want to crowd the
Yeah.
Agenda.
I don't still have a clear answer on whether it's allowable for us to impose the buffer minus what you're proposing here, and council's not
I'm
present,
sorry, I
so.
didn't read
Yeah.
the thing. Does it recommend a 100-foot buffer? Conservation?
Conservation recommends, I believe.
Oh, but we
Take
can.
my copy.
Yeah, 75 or greater.
They do?
They do.
Yeah.
But they only recommended adjoining the project.
Correct.
Gotta make you come up.
Yes, identify yourself.
Wayne Bruin on behalf of Atlantic Golf Course. So with the employee housing, the board asked and whether you wanted a buffer on that portion, which is on the opposite side of the pond, and you asked us whether we would consider extending that for the entire portion of the pond, and that was offered to the board at that time. And we will when the application comes in, which you will see shortly. That being said, here they're recommending a 75-foot buffer. That was 100 feet, and as Anthony said, the exceptions, as you do normally in your buffer for existing conditions, or clearly recognizing the ability to continue to maintain those. I think with this application, if the board is to approve it, it'll be easier to identify what is allowed in that portion of the property. Before, we generally were referring to the survey and existing conditions, and we had the ability to not only maintain, but improve and modify, of course, subject to all the necessary permits, but the covenant wasn't going to prohibit it. In this case, we'll know exactly where we stand with this application. So what I'm suggesting, as Claire suggested, is you could get a buffer agreement for the entire pond, recognizing what you're doing on this application. When you get the other application, we can do them both at the same time.
I guess what my thought process is, it's like, we don't have that opportunity in our hands yet. We're about to, but we do have an opportunity in our hands this moment to say, okay, well, let's just do it now. And, you know, with this approval, and that's maybe not a requirement or a trigger, but it is a question to the client who already offered it to say, hey, let's just get it done now, and that's done. And when the staff housing application comes in, that covenant is already established. It's now or later. I'm a fan of efficiency, just to get it done now.
I agree with that logic, because, you know, I don't even like talking about other applications that are not before this
Hypothetical.
board, right? This one is, and if we have an
I
opportunity.
just want to submit, we would only agree if the buffer is only related to this project and not the entire pond. In particular, because you'll remember, the other element with the employee housing was the trail that this board wanted, which and that had to be acknowledged. And without all that in place, we wouldn't be able to nail that down and put it in that covenant, which is what we had offered for the entire pond.
You know, it's important to bear in mind that the conditions we impose on the applications have to be directly correlated to the requested action. I mean, we can't just, you know, arbitrarily.
Okay, there is a list of 9 different items on the conservation board concerning the health of this pond, and we're saying we agree with your plan for addressing the health of the pond here, and, you know, not reconfiguring the parking to another side of the building away from the pond. It is absolutely related and not arbitrary to also saying, okay, if there was a 100-foot buffer on the table with another application, there's now an application adjacent to this pond, I would push for it. And it's a question to the applicant. And will you ask that question of the applicant?
So the recommendation is for a 75-foot buffer,
Okay.
different than the 100-foot.
Sure, we can ask for
Okay.
100, and
Well,
the
you can ask.
conservation board can ask
We're not gonna give you
for
100 feet related to this
Sure, I'm
project
asking.
now. But we would only want it in the proximity of this project. We're not gonna
and
go with the rest of the
not
pond.
around the pond.
No. It's premature because we know this application will be submitted shortly, and there's a number of conditions which actually may change. If you're not aware, the town has purchased the 2 held properties, which could totally change the location of the trail, and it may not need to be on our property, but the covenant that we had drafted and you had reviewed and asked for had to acknowledge the ability of the town to put the trail, and there was a specific trail location crossing our property. So there are things that may change, and we can't dictate what will occur over there at this time. But
Well,
But
you
if you
know
want,
better-
we're willing to put a 75, as recommended by the Conservation Board, 75-foot buffer in this location, next to the
The
turf park.
reality is you can't undertake any activity within the 75 foot anyway.
Right.
Yeah, we're just repeating,
Buffer and over buffer.
acknowledging the code. The other point is, a covenant is to put a future landowner on notice that there is a condition, that is, which you have to comply with the code. I would suggest a covenant for a normal residential property where there's a likelihood that the property will be conveyed, to put that future landowner is important. Here, I don't see the Atlantic Golf Course conveying this property and needing to put some future landowner on notice that there is a buffer requirement that is identical to the code, which they comply to day in and day out, so, but
So what's the problem?
what's the problem?
Of, if it's already something that they're complying with, why wouldn't they just?
Why is it
put on
necessary to
record?
encumber somebody's title with a reference to the code? That you're charged with
Because
knowing?
there's a significant environmental resource that is being recommended with 9 points items here that I feel we should be addressing.
Right, but I guess the question, what's the purpose of the covenant?
Is to protect from any build out because codes can change.
The covenant doesn't do that. Covenant is enforceable by the town in an action in Supreme Court, if it's violated. And it puts a future landowner on notice that there is a section of the property that can't be disturbed, which is exactly what the statute says.
Right, but the statute can change, right?
My concern with putting covenants on specific items.
Same time as Atlantic sells.
Is the covenants that we're not putting on other items. They could, in the future, be waived as like, well, look, we had covenant 2, 3, and 4, but this other stuff we're doing, there were no covenants for that, so we're gonna go ahead and undertake activities which are not permitted, but hey, they weren't covenanted. So it's almost a suggestion that certain other activities are permitted, otherwise this board wouldn't have covenanted. What irks me a lot of times is we put a covenant, I've seen it like, oh, an IA system has to be, or this property shall be required to have an IA system by covenant. It's like, well, you know, that's, okay, then what about the other things that don't have covenants? Does that mean the land, it's almost implied the landlord can go ahead and do other activities because there's no covenant on it. That was my concern about covenants.
So are we taking an action on this today?
Yeah.
Jeff? Okay, so that's,
Yeah,
I feel like we can continue discussion, because we're talking about legal mechanisms without our counsel present. I'm asking questions I still not sure I have answers to. That's okay.
Christine, a lot of times
And I
can be
think
helpful.
Christine, next time we discuss it, and Christine is present, we'll be taking an action that we can consider within the context of what our legal authorities are, and, and not anything beyond that.
But
But
it
my
is-
question of today was, if there was another application that was considering a 100-foot buffer through legal mechanism of our choosing around that pond, and the Conservation Board is recommending protection of the pond in some way, 75, 100, 50, whatever it is, I think it's efficient to ask your client if they would consider that as part of this application that we have in front of us right now. And if the answer is no, and there's no legal mechanism to enforce that, fine. But if the answer is, hey, we'll do it partway, I think they are already doing it partway, like you said, with the improvement of the drainage here, which, I concede, I see that. But why not consider this other thing? I mean, it's just a question.
But would your ask be
It's not
more-
like an
would the ask be more
accusation about
appropriate?
what, or, I'm not trying to take away their right to build on their property, but something was considered before that addresses the Conservation Board's comments, I'd like to consider that in response to the Conservation Board's comments. So if you can ask the question, that's all I'm asking for. And
Okay,
we'll address it with our
would the
council.
question be more appropriate as it pertains specifically to this application, though, and specifically the area of concern within the application as opposed to the entirety of the park?
If the buffer is not gonna be considered around the whole pond as it was with the housing application, I agree with what Dennis is saying, because, you know, a little section versus others, it doesn't make sense. However, if there is an openness to asking the client whether they would consider the buffer around the full pond in association with this application, since we have a hypothetical opportunity in the future, not a real opportunity, I feel it would be wise to incorporate it into this application. That's all.
So to kind of go with what Wayne was saying, this one is a recommendation of 75. In that application, it was going to be 100. But I agree with Wayne that it further complicates the next one because we would have already have established it without figuring out what's happening with the continuation of the trail. And then we might have to that's a lawyer thing, I don't
So
know
the
how to
language,
undo.
in a sense, the language of the action will prevent any flexibility on a subsequent application before the.
Or can you,
normal language
can you
does
undo
that.
the action?
You
in
would be
order to-
precluded from putting the trail there.
I think pick up on Kate's thought, which said our town attorney is not here.
Right,
I
so
think
it's
we should
good,
defer
we had
these
a good discussion,
conversations.
we're not making any decisions today,
Right,
but I
right.
think it's an important exchange because we're now putting our heads together to say, okay, what's your future plans? And although we don't have an application in front of us, it's good for us to have this and this and this so that we could work together to accomplish both reasonable goals, you know?
Yeah. For me, in terms of trying to move the application along, because we want to complete this,
Sure.
it would be to pick a distance on this side, at which we say there's a 75-foot buffer, and then the rest of it is left for how we connect to it in a second application.
Mm-hmm.
And just a suggestion, you can talk to council about this, you could write the buffer to say that, to say any future applications is gonna require a buffer around the entire Shorts Pond.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, like, if there's
You
another
could write it
mechanism
in a
that
way that
accomplishes the
does plan
goal,
for the future.
you know.
Non-specific?
Your
Development,
condition of approval.
future
Condition.
development.
Future
in the area
development
within 500 feet of
Shorts
Shorts
Pond.
Pond would require a buffer around the whole pond, or a conservation easement,
would
which
be-
is what
Right,
was
so,
out there in the
like,
first place.
you know, and when it comes down, I understand, you know, Wayne, you have to plan ahead of what future applications may come, and we certainly don't wanna, you know, put something in place that makes it difficult to untangle later, to get things done that we all agree can and could get done. But there's, you know, working together to figure that out.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I like the suggestion that you just had.
Yeah, so think
like
about
a
it.
condition of
There's an
approval or
in-between.
something like that, what's the
Yeah. There's a
mechanism?
timing mechanism.
Yeah, there's
Is it a
there's
covenant?
in-between.
Is it a condition of approval? Is it a, you know,
Yes.
whatever it is? So
There's
we
an
can discuss
in-between.
that in the future.
Okay.
Overall, I think it's a great
Okay.
improvement to the site change.
Anything else?
So that's it. That was the crux of the conversation.
Good.
Discussion.
Thanks.
Okay, so generally speaking though, it's good. We'll write a decision for the next time and that'll be a discussion item for the next time. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
So no action on it.
No action. You have more?
I do, but you go
No,
ahead.
no, I'm done.
I have no applicants.
I have a.
Oh, I do have an applicant.
I think the Land Rover?
I have Wayne, actually, yes. He is-
you for the Land
he's
Rover.
an applicant.
Claire. Should I just do,
Yes.
before we wish to-
If you wanna do.
We are stating bridge.
Absolutely, let's do,
We are still doing bridge.
We're doing the bridge, yeah. Hey, we're doing the bridge. yeah.
we're definitely doing bridge today, and, Chuck has his first application, so he's gonna go over.
Which one was that?
It's number 14, yeah, he's gonna pull it.
Chuck's first application, so, Bruce Road.
With celebrating with
I thought we did lose, no?
Oops.
It's more
I think that was
celebrating than that.
Anthony's Lewis.
Oh,
That was the, TDRs or whatever. Yeah, that's a different Lewis Road.
oh.
Yeah, there's a different Lewis Road.
I thought we had done both of them.
No golf lines.
There's a lot of Lewis Roads.
This is 60, yeah.
Technically 66. So this is it.
Yeah. Number 14.
Okay, so this is to review the application for 64 Lewis.
For completeness.
For completeness. And it is 3-lot subdivision. The address is actually 66 Lewis Road in East Quogue. It is in the Central Pine Barrens compatible growth area, aquifer protection overlay district, and agricultural overlay district. It's a CR 80 zoning district. Should I show the?
Yeah, just show them a copy of the plan.
Yep. So this is a copy of the plan. We are going to deem it incomplete for now. We did speak to the applicant. There were a few things missing on the site plan, a few things we needed to clarify. She's aware, and she's going to start working on it. Basically, this is how it's set up now. The house is going to stay in that corner. They're going to divide up the other plots.
See, my only comment goes to the whole clustering. I know this certainly doesn't warrant clustering, but we typically try and encourage a mechanism where the applicant, we leave it to the applicant to request a waiver of
Yeah,
cluster.
that was actually the first thing we did tell her,
Yeah.
that we would need a
So-
waiver.
That she needs to physically ask for the
Yes.
waiver, or
Yeah.
verbally ask for the
Yeah.
waiver.
Okay.
I mean, get a letter
Yeah.
for that. Yep.
So that should probably just be blank. But it almost suggests that it's not applicable.
Oh,
And
did I click off the wrong? Oh.
Oh, yeah.
I
So
did.
you just would do
Sorry.
X.
On the other side is where I marked
Yeah.
all the problems. Yeah.
Request a waiver. X means it's missing. The request is
Oh.
missing. That's
Oh,
what the X
cluster
means.
deal, okay.
Yeah.
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 Let me go down for her.
Yep.
So the X's are what make it incomplete.
Not provided, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
NA would be, yeah.
Okay.
But it is an X, not provided.
Maybe it's early, but is there a common driveway in there, or how are they gonna?
So the plan is, okay, so it fronts 2 roads here. There's already a driveway here, and one of the things we need to figure out, we asked for a copy of the easement, because on our GIS, it says it's only a scenic easement, but the applicant says it's supposed to be for scenic and driveway, because the driveway
This
that's
driveway's
there
there.
now is currently in a scenic easement, at least on our records. So that's for one spot. The other one's going to have driveways built on
That's 104.
Damascus Road.
Which is the
Which is
more
the
local
other
road.
road.
It's not 104, right?
Yeah, it's a more local road, which I
Yeah.
think it'd be appropriate to have
So it'd be no
separate
common
driveways.
driveway.
What
Yeah.
is the second road, Damascus?
Yeah.
The one on the west?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
And then Lewis is
Lewis
the other
on the
one.
Who's the other one?
So only the house that's currently there is the only one that will stay on Lewis. The other 2 will face the other.
Yeah, they won't have any
Yeah, the street.
additional curb cuts on Lewis.
One common driveway coming out on Damascus, I think would make the most sense if we were able to.
Does it? I thought it was a pretty quiet road, isn't it?
Yeah, as opposed to coming out on 104.
Oh, yeah.
Oh. Yeah,
No, like
no,
one
no,
common
the-
driveway?
Only the
I
only
don't know if they
driveway
can-
will be the one that's currently there on Lewis. Damascus will
No, they're
have
gonna-
2 for the other properties they're proposing.
They'll have their own curb cuts.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
okay.
If that makes
Damascus.
sense. It's not a busy road.
That's not a
right?
busy road,
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
just,
So we're deeming it
Incomplete.
incomplete?
Incomplete.
Until she
Okay.
provides
Very good.
the information.
She
Do
is
we have a
aware.
motion for that?
Motion?
Motion by Kate.
Second.
Second by
Craig.
Craig, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Congratulations.
Thank
You did
you.
it.
we had a cookie to celebrate.
Grab one.
What do we got?
Your reward.
Good stuff.
Worth it.
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm going to do the Delandro if that's okay, because I have
Delandro,
Wayne
yes.
here, and then we'll do the
19.
bridge.
Going to Delandra, item 19.
Is,
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
So the action today is to assume lead agency. There was no, nobody who wanted it, the referrals. So that would be the action. This, I just wanna pass out the, secret information, just so you're familiar with it and comfortable with it, so.
This is one, okay.
I think one's the site plan and one's the floor plan. Then we'll do, on the next meeting, on August 24th, we'll do the secret determination and deem complete, if you're comfortable with this. So, if you want, we'll just quickly go through the part two, if that's good?
And this is based on the discussion we had at the last meeting, right?
No, this is coordination from June 22nd. This is,
where you were.
this is, we're doing Delandro, not for,
Am I in the wrong, okay, I'm sorry,
Yeah, you're
yeah,
thinking about-
I'm in the wrong, okay.
You're thinking about the residential.
Wrong one,
subdivision.
yep, yep.
Are we getting all the hate mail?
This is the one industrial building where
Yes.
Craig used to have a shop in the same area.
oh yeah, probably our next
Kind of-
door, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're right, you're there.
This one.
So, yes, this is the one, pull up the aerials. Actually, just go to the site. See. Yeah, so this is the existing, this is part of a 3-lot subdivision here. And this is the southern portion of it. It's got some easements on the property. And they want to build a building similar to this situation where they put the building in and.
Is that Chips, north of the Chips Evergreen?
Chips Evergreens up here.
Oh.
Yeah.
Tilton North.
Yeah.
And then somebody else has an application on the one that
Yep.
has the
Yeah.
cut through.
Sunrise that's beyond is
Sunrise
this one.
that's beyond,
Very
yeah.
similar situation. They'll have to ask for the waiver, the adjustment in the covenants.
I think there's one to the southeast as well. That was before our board too.
The southeast, yeah. This one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
That
West
one we just
Hampton
did. I think
Glass.
that was this is West Hampton Glass, and this is Toscana. And this one right here. But these are the ones that had some restrictions. Oh, these three had the restrictions of the buffers in the front and the back, and then the restriction of the 25% clearing on the property. So that'll be a an adjustment of the covenant to be up to the 50%, consistent with the aqua protection, like you do on residential properties that were part of that. So I didn't identify any significant environmental issues in this list. This is pretty typical. They're gonna comply with it. So the impact on land is, they'll provide drainage, they'll comply with the Aquifer Protection Overlay District clearing. Impact on groundwater, again, small, and they'll do an IA system in this case, I believe. I think that's what this is designed here.
We just ran a water main down there too, so they could tap into the city water. Originally that whole area was on wells, but they had the plume issue.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So you're saying that they are gonna comply with the APOD clearing restrictions?
Correct, 50%.
Okay, but it was 25%?
Yeah, so at the time of the subdivision, which, I don't know exactly when, but it was like 87 or so. It was, actually I can look the date, but it was before Aquifer Protection Overlay District regulations came into effect. So the board
I
at the
see.
time was trying to find out what's the right number. You'll
Okay.
do that same adjustment for a lot of residential subdivisions at the time. That they'll have a 25% or 35% restriction where they're permitted to do 50%. So the
Yeah.
code was written in that case to allow you to
Overlay
do
that,
that
yeah.
adjustment.
Got
They
it.
need to do this in these cases of these 3 lots here, so.
Great.
So it'll just be consistent. I did do a referral to Pine Barrens and we didn't have any responses, but we'll have one at the time of the site plan completeness. So I didn't identify anything else, for flooding, plants or animals. Plants and animals, I think this might be northern long-eared bat, so I'm gonna have to notice that.
Can't get away from those bats.
No, they're everywhere. So there'll be a restriction on that, so I'll put some language in that for that. Obviously, it's not agricultural resources or aesthetic resources, not historic or archaeological, nothing with open space. It is a critical environmental area, that's what the Pine Barrens and APOD are, so I'll note that. Nothing on transportation or energy, noise or odor, or impact to human health.
Can we back up to transportation?
Yes.
So it's like Old Faithful. Anytime these come up, I have to bring it up.
Yep.
Spionk Riverhead Road intersecting with Old Country Road.
Mhm.
There was an accident there last week.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
a motorcycle accident. And again, I still maintain some significant traffic studies need to be conducted at that intersection. And then
Okay.
obviously, you know, more cars, more opportunity for accidents at that intersection.
Yeah.
And it actually, you know, not to cite social media, but we do have a whole community social media presence, and an awful lot of people got on it, you know, complaining about the same thing, pretty much saying the same words I say, that the sight lines were off there. And everybody cheats to the point. You become, you know, you're committed, and once you're committed, someone comes around that bend fast.
So you passed a resolution back in February to that
Right.
effect.
Right.
Do you wanna refresh it and resend it again?
So where can it take us? What can we do? Like-
I mean, I'll send it again. I'm not quite sure where it went when we, you know, it goes to the town board, but
Right.
maybe we could even cite the recent in that resolution, I could refresh it and put in that there was an accident last
Yeah.
week and you have the same concerns and this is, you
Well,
think
and
it's
now we
a-
have 1, 2, 3
three,
more
right.
applications coming for, you know, additional traffic that's gonna be coming onto
I can
that
cite that
I
road.
mean, it's
too.
the
Do a new
cumulative
count.
impact of these applications. I hate to burden any one applicant with a traffic study.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
Yes. But the notice is to the town board if they're not focused on this. And
Yeah,
then this
yeah.
is something you've noticed, just even as a, you know, an entity that reviews these applications. I can refresh that if you inclined.
Did
When-
anything surface out of the Hamlet study, the Spionk, Hamlet study?
The initial one, a couple
Yeah.
years ago, you mean?
Yeah,
Not really, it wasn't referenced in there, so.
that's a key intersection.
Mhm.
Yeah. And as we can see now, the building is kind of
Oh, yeah.
escalating quickly.
There's more to come.
There's more to come.
It's up to you, do you want
How
me
do
to?
you get county involved?
I can do that now, I mean, we have the resolution
Do you think it would be
written.
helpful and
Yeah.
appropriate?
I think so.
How do you get this in
Yeah, I
front of the
agree.
county?
I think it's good.
I mean, not holding up this
Um,
application.
Right,
They're
but just
entitled
saying
to
like,
board.
as
this
per
is a
our
town-owned
prior
town road?
recommendation, a recent
Town-owned town
accident
intersection?
plus
No.
Or is that
additional
Old Country
applications
Road
along
County.
Spionk Riverhead Road, we ask you to consider again,
Oh, right.
this, you know,
Thank you.
more things are happening.
Yes.
Add to the record.
The town could undertake it, but as Dennis just reminded me here, pointed out that Old Country Road is County Road 71. Generally, the county would take the lead. I mean, I remember looking at this intersection many years ago.
It
not
is?
Formal, that's how it's labeled on here.
On the textbook? Oh,
On the
there.
Survey.
It's,
I'm pretty sure it's county.
It's county intersection town?
County.
usually the higher jurisdiction would take the lead.
Yeah.
But that,
Well,
it's there, it's up to them to decide if they want to.
Well,
So-
it said,
Riverhead is
it
county.
wasn't sent to the county the last time. Do you wanna refresh it, then send it to the county too?
Or put in the resolution that we recommend this go to the county, since Old
Yeah.
Country Road appears as County Road 71 on,
That's good.
you know,
Sorry, Wayne.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with this application,
Come on,
it's
come on,
just
come on.
separately.
I fully appreciate your concerns, but it's not something, as you indicated, that this plan can do.
Right,
I mean,
nothing-
Even if you wanted us
I'm
to do
trying
a
to balance
traffic
that,
study.
I really am. I don't wanna burden your client.
Yeah,
with-
Right, that's
a traffic study, by the way, impact analysis shows the difference between what you're allowed as a right and what you're proposing. and we're allowed as of right. So what really, as you said, is a cumulative study, which is something out of our control, something with the town or the county, and even if we did, we have no authority to go down and do something at that intersection anyway.
Right, yeah, it doesn't really impact,
But
right, doesn't
I
impact
agree,
this
but
application.
What you did before is the way, but, you know, maybe, again, it's one of those
Says
things, you
county
gotta go
road
and stand in front of the town board and scream.
That's what it says on here, I couldn't
screen.
remember that.
But yeah.
Not necessarily you, but I mean, yeah, that's how it gets
not
to the
We
top
have
of
to
the
double
file,
check.
so to
Right,
speak.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Say it
it says
again.
it's a
Right.
collector road.
Spionk Riverhead Road is not labeled as such, but
That's a town
Old Country
road.
Road says it's
Old
County Road
Country.
71.
It's
Old
a
Country's-
Oh, Old Country Road
Yeah,
is. Oh,
yeah,
of
Old
course.
Country Road.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no, not Spionk River.
My question for Tom is there a mechanism to get this in front of the county somehow, just in more a generic sense?
application?
Not this
Well-
application, but to say, hey, we've got a lot of activity current and more planned.
I mean, there
Well,
are,
that's what you've
you know,
said, Claire, is that you can send it to the town board and to the county DPW, right?
Right, and
right,
who at the
and
county
that's them to take
DPW?
it. Probably, you know, the chief engineer, Bill Hillman,
Okay,
but they do now have an email address that your residents and, you know, whoever's supposed to send concerns to this email address that gets acknowledged they received it, and that's about it.
oh,
I would think on a, you know, practical level, you know, Tom Houghton sending it to Bill Hillman and asking for them to consider doing a traffic study of this intersection would be the most
Yeah.
kind of practical way to get
Okay.
it done. Now, whether the county decides they want to do it or not, you know, they probably got 5,000 intersections that they have to decide which ones they want to do studies on, but I think that would be, or, you know, conversely, the town can do the study also. I mean, the town,
Tell all
many
those people
occasions,
on
studied
social media
intersections
to contact their
with county roads or
county
state roads,
legislators.
but that's on the town board to decide if we wanted to do a study of a road that we may or may not have control over.
yeah,
That's why I'm surprised nothing surfaced out of this beyond Hammond study,
Mhm.
yeah.
'cause that's pretty recent.
Okay, I can
Okay.
do that. Do you want me to have it written for next time, or you want me just to do it?
I'm comfortable with just having you do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
We're
I
just
think I know
making
what
a
you want,
recommendation.
And I'll, to your point, Tom, I'm
So
going
we
to
haven't
have.
identified, so we're good on the, how are we handling
I think so.
secret?
Oh,
Today, we're
the
just
only
assuming
action
lead
today
agency,
with
right?
Wayne, sorry.
Right,
the
it doesn't,
thing is
right, and we,
to
again, this
assume
isn't
lead agency.
the applicant's.
You wanna go
Oh,
home?
we're gonna assume?
To assume lead agency, that would be an action
Okay.
for Wayne's,
So our motion then is to assume lead agency. Do we have a motion by Craig? Second by Kate, all in
Thank you.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed,
Thanks.
abstentions?
sorry, and
yes.
then,
3 absent, thanks, Wayne.
and then
you
at the
wanna
next
see-
meeting, we'll do SECR. There was no other issues
Yeah,
with that, right?
just do the
Right.
neg deck.
So perfect.
Deem it complete.
Deem
complete.
And then you want me to do a resolution, saying this to town board, this time sending it to the county and recommending the town engineer send it to the county?
Yeah, I don't know whether you put that in the resolution or not, but, you know, I mean, that would normally be the mechanism if everything was, you know, the town board would give it to the town engineer, who's kind of our de facto traffic
Or
safety person.
I can verbally go
Or-
down to the town engineer and say, could you really?
Could you send this?
Could you really send this?
Yeah.
And I think we can get a
Right,
yes.
there you go.
Yeah, we'll get a yes on that. So I won't
Yes.
put that as a finding, we're just gonna
Right.
say.
You to him is probably the most efficient way to do
probably
it.
the most
but-
efficient way. But we'll actually make sure the resolution actually gets to the county too, so.
Right.
That's nice.
Thank
I
you.
can adopt that if you guys are comfortable with
Thanks.
that. No problem.
Claire, did you want to jump into bridge patrol?
Do you wanna do a resolution to that effect though? A resolution to that?
Oh, okay,
So we're
authorizing Claire
moving
to.
to. go
Resend
ahead
the
then.
recommendation that they look at the intersection because of the cumulative impacts, and if there's any additional, applications, there were 9, I think, last
Right.
time. If there's more, I'll put 10, 11, whatever it is.
Right, that's
Right.
it.
And then I'll say the recent accidents last week.
You could also mention, you know, as industrial sites, these roads are now carrying, this intersection is now dealing with more trucks.
Trucks.
More heavy equipment.
Mhm. Good, so it's an authorization.
Yeah.
You want to make the motion,
Go ahead, Craig.
Greg? Your name on it,
And
we
our
have a
traffic
second?
person, the second.
Tom is
I
with
like
the second.
that.
All in favor,
Alley-oop,
aye, opposed,
baby.
abstentions, we have 4 yes.
get
Good,
it
yeah,
done.
we talk about this stuff and until we get the ball rolling, nothing gets
It's
done.
important.
See what
Good, good,
happens.
good stuff.
Exactly, so that was Delandro, 20 Bridge Petroleum.
Do
So
Bridge.
I have fresh documents for you, I sent them to you.
Yeah, we have them email and,
So this would be to issue a positive declaration. The applicants were informed.
they didn't wanna show up
But they didn't want to show up.
to yell at us. I was like, I was prepared for drama here.
So take one of each. One's
Okay.
the resolution and one's the support documents.
Take one and pass it to the left. Okay, thanks, Tom.
Take one.
So the resolution is to issue a positive declaration. This is based upon the review from the last meeting, which you
Take one.
identified several significant issues, and I've illustrated them in a narrative. Which, would you like me to read?
Part 3,
Part 3?
should we just go to that?
Yep.
Let's
Part
do-
3, 1, and I can read it if you'd like.
It's toward the back.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, impact on land was a large to moderates. Projects for a change of use from a service station, to an accessory, to a convenience store, accessory to an existing gasoline station. The application also proposes 2 canopies over the existing pumps. The zoning board appeals were required to determine if convenience store uses as designed is accessory to the gasoline filling station. The planning board has ongoing reservations as the ZBA making this determination of accessory use. The size of the convenience store is out of scale as an accessory use. Existing use, redevelopment of the property represents a non-conforming use within the HO zoning district. The redevelopment of the property will require variances. The proposed generates additional parking. The minimum of 12 parking spaces are required, and the convenience store and tenant provided. So, behind the building are 2 tanks, 1 diesel, 1 kerosene. No information being provided. These were changed or relocated. The existing underground double wall fiberglass tanks were installed in 2005. County approval per the applicant. The proposal is for 2 tanks to be retained. Proposed action may result in increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. The proposed action has the potential for flooding as there is minimal curbing provided. Impact on surface water, potentially moderate to large. The property is located in the WQI, high priority zone. No information is provided regarding the existing proposed sanitary system. The nearest service water body is Dave's Creek, which is connected to Shinnecock Bay. Given the site's history as a gasoline filling station and service station, all county and state regulations shall be followed. Proposed action may create turbidity in a water body, either from upland erosion, runoff, or disturbing bottom sediments. Proposed action may affect the water quality of any water body within or downstream from the site for the proposed action. The proposed action may require the construction of new or expansion of existing water treatment facilities. Impact on groundwater, potentially moderate to large impact on groundwater. Project shall conform with the county health services regulations. Potential impact stormwater runoff due to from the impervious surface area proposed on sites. Proposed action will require a bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or aquifer of the convenience store will result in an increase in gasoline sales and potential impact on groundwater. Impact on flooding, potentially moderate to large. Proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage pattern. Proposed is located in a slush zone, category 4 hurricanes. Impact on aesthetic resources. Property is located, it's potentially moderate to large. Property is located within 300 feet of a community park, situation or activity in which the viewers are engaged while reviewing the proposed action is routine travel by residents, including travel to and from work, recreation, or tourism-based activities. Proposed action may cause a diminishment of public enjoyment and appreciation of designated aesthetic resources. Canopy is in contrast to the surrounding neighborhood and the underlying zoning. Impact on historic or archaeological resources, moderate to large. The project is immediately adjacent to buildings including a house and a historic church which are older than 100 years old. According to the property record card, the building was constructed in 1948, is therefore 75 years old. Impact on transportation. The planning board finds the potentially moderate to large impact on transportation. The project has large open curb cuts along Montauk Highway and Walker Avenue, which are traffic safety concerns. Projected traffic increase may exceed capacity of existing road network. The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle combinations. Proposed action may alter the present pattern of movement or people or goods. Proposed action has an impact on Walker Avenue. Proposed action will result in safe internal maneuvering. The board finds potentially moderate impact on noise, odor, and lights. The proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulations. The delivery of goods adjacent to residential neighborhood may result in a noise nuisance. Proposed action may result in a routine odors for more than 1 hour per day, food and dumpster. Proposed action may result in light shining onto adjacent properties. The proposed canopy does not meet setbacks, and the lighting associated is anticipated to trespass. Proposed action may result in lighting creating sky glow brighter than the existing area conditions. Impact on human health, potentially moderate to large. Proposed action is located within 1,500 feet of a licensed daycare center. There is a completed emergency spill remediation or completed environmental site on site. There is a completed emergency spill remediation or a completed environmental site remediation on or adjacent to the site of the proposed action. Information to be provided on prior contamination. The site of the action is subject to institutional control limiting the use of the property. Is there an easement deed restriction? I don't know, I have a question right there. Proposed action may result in an increase in the rate of disposal or processing of solid waste. Impact from potentially increase in traffic. Impacts and consistency of the community plans, potentially moderate to large. The proposed actions land use components may be different from or sharp contrast to current surrounding land use patterns. The proposed action is inconsistent with local land use plans or zoning regulations. Retail uses are generally not permitted in the HO zoning district. The zoning board of appeals would be required to determine if the convenience store use is designed as accessory to the gasoline filling station. Property does not meet the park requirements for the proposed convenience store. Variance is required. Proposed canopies do not meet the standards of the HO zoning district. Proposed action will set an important precedent for future projects, impact on density, intensity of the use. And the impact on consisting with community character, moderate to large. Proposed action is inconsistent with predominant architectural scale and character. Proposed action is inconsistent with the character of the existing natural landscape. Proposed action the project site is immediately adjacent to buildings including a house and a historic church which are older than 100 years old. It is based upon
Pretty thorough,
comments.
Claire.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's almost it's almost a scoping document.
Yeah.
Yes.
I did, on the third bullet on impact on groundwater, you said increase in gasoline sales. They also sell diesel?
They do currently, and there's no information on whether they're
What?
gonna, well, they sell diesel.
I was gonna say, if you want to put and diesel,
We're gonna
And
say
diesel.
fuel.
Oh, gasoline
right?
and diesel.
gasoline and diesel.
Yes.
Can't hurt.
Not at all. I like that. Good. Anything else? Okay. My recommendation is to adopt a resolution or possible.
So how, it's just gonna be one resolution, Claire?
One resolution, it's based upon the narrative, the part 2 that you reviewed last week, the narrative we just reviewed. It's written in form, and we'll go from there.
Okay, very thorough. So our action then is to issue a positive declaration for Bridge Platorium. Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Craig.
Second.
Second by Kate. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have 4 yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Great, and then I just have 3 signatures, but one's off. So 2235 Montauk Highway is off the agenda.
Item 22 is off?
Yes, and so
Or now
you're
state
just-
for the record that I will be signing items 21 and 23.
Yep.
During the time that I was going to eat my unsalted almonds, except someone
Uh-oh.
already ate them. Been eyeing those things since 1:45. Oh, thanks a lot.
You got the second half.
Are we good, Claire?
Yes.
Good, so
good.
motion to adjourn until 6 PM
Motion.
by Craig, second by Kate. Kate,
Sure,
you're our
I'll
hero
make
today.
it.
You are definitely our hero. Thanks so much for redoing your whole work schedule, because you were gonna adjourn at 4:30 and
Yeah, and so I'll make it tonight and